Welcome to the Geometric View, episode 26, season 3, where we get into the Mereon matrix with Lynnclaire Dennis. The Mereon matrix meets the Dougherty Set. We get into bubble sculpting and a lot of large and wonderful, deeply nested and incredible superpowers. I'm your host, Buddy James. Strap in. Here we go.
Please support us on our Patreon link below.
Guys,
Thank you.
Here. I'm sure you might be in the middle of a conversation. We're a couple minutes in. Had some technical difficulties, but nonetheless, we're all here. We just got the stage lit. The stage is open and available. Welcome to the Geometric View, episode 26, season 3. We have a guest here today. We have Lynnclaire Dennis, or could be the other way around. Okay, perfect. All right. It just seems like one of those names. My name kind of does that too a little bit. And
Sorry.
Go ahead. I'm just gonna I'm gonna introduce a couple of people, and then I'm gonna give you the stage here. We got B Love. We got it looks like another guest, Bill Wrathy. We have Richard Blankenship, Tessa, and I'm super excited for this episode. It's a little bit earlier than normal, so yeah, let's just jump right into things. This episode is. We're going to go into the government. We're going to get into what it is to digestion, the geometry of digestion, government consumption, what things eat, how things become larger, how basically that's going to be a little bit later. But first, we're going to have a presentation here from Lynnclaire. And this is our first time meeting, so please tell us about yourself.
Hi, no, it's great to be here. I connected with Chris a few weeks ago. Chris sent me an email asking if I was familiar with the Chesterhedron, and I had some introduction to it a number of years ago, and so that's really strange to see myself like that on camera.
There you are.
I'm going to shift, and I would like to screen share if that's all right, because I think the easiest way to go into what I'm doing, what I've been doing for almost 3 decades with a team, is best shared using a PowerPoint, not in a traditional way, but just to keep us simple, on track, and focused. Will that work?
Okay, perfect. Yeah,
okay.
Let me stop sharing, and then go ahead and take the screen.
Perfect. All right. Perfect. What I'd like to start with is just a small 3-minute, maybe it's only 2-minute video that just gives you a brief overview of what I'm doing. All right. So let's just start that. Listen to that. I'm Lynnclaire Dennis, and I'd like to introduce you to a new scientific knowledge about the nature of our interconnectedness. The last 30 years, I've worked with a team of scientists whose only goal was to disprove that it had anything to do with living, dying, science, or spirituality. Sound remains the strongest strand of connection in my life today. Music is a universal language, and it forms bonds that connect us over time. Not many know that the word religion actually means to connect. So do the words yoga, karma, sutra, curve, yoke, and knot. Frequency is the heart of creation. Your DNA is a chain of connections and carries the instructions you need to live, grow, and procreate. After years of investigation, we used the pattern's inaudible frequencies to vibrate a few drops of water, and experts who said nothing would happen were stunned when a sphere of blue light appeared, spun rings, and blossomed into the matrix. We repeated the experiment, but this time used the sounds of the heart and brain, and the same pattern appeared in both. Research showed how this pattern connects everything and made it clear how this knowledge could help us build stronger social connections. To make this a reality, we created a lifelong learning project called Belonging. It's a series of unique experiences, courses, apps, and meditation tools that let you connect with yourself so you can then build healthy relationships. Knowing how everything fits lets us design simple solutions to complex challenges. Join us to consciously co-create a vibrant, living legacy of love.
Beautiful.
I was really appreciative of whoever it is whose moniker out there is Beloved. Who is that?
Oh, nice. Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Yeah, that would be me.
That would be you. Fantastic. I'm really glad to hear that. I just want to introduce you to. I'm sorry?
We can't. Someone's breaking up.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lynnclaire.
Okay. First of all, what I'd like to ask you to do is to write down any questions that you might have. Because if we're going to get through this in an hour, which is my intention, and I think you will appreciate the content. It took me a while to put it together for you, but hold your questions until we're through this. People have asked about Mereon, about where the name came from. And what we've done is we've hidden the formula in plain sight. Most of you know about Einstein's E equals mc squared. Well, Mereon is telling us that m equals E. And some of you will recognize the inverse E, Euler's E, the golden ratio, and the n is actually an exponential n. So Mereon is not a name, it is a naming, okay?
Okay.
So a couple of things that, wow, I don't know what happened to that screen, but we'll let it be okay. Some thoughts to remember, and you know, so often we're told, oh, just let it go, let it go. And I say, no, don't let it go, because that's what ties us into guilt. We need to learn to let go of things. And that means, you know, surrendering when we need to. Gregory Bateson was a social scientist in the 20th century whose lifelong quest was to find the pattern that connects is the pattern of patterns, he said. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the work of Buckminster Fuller, who was constantly reminding us that geometry was dynamic. Bucky is the one who discovered the jitterbug. And I met his grandson, Jamie, a number of years ago, and when he saw my work, he cried. He said, "This is what my grandfather was looking for. I know it is." A few months ago, I found this quote by Ban Ki-moon: "Lifting people out of poverty, advancing economic growth, these are one and the same fight. Connecting the dots between climate change, water scarcity, energy shortages, health, food security, women's empowerment, Black Lives Matter, the whole thing, everything. Solutions to one problem must be solutions for all." And that got me really excited. And the last quote there is, "The darkest places in hell are reserved for those who maintain their neutrality in times of moral crisis." And I'm really happy to be in Spain. I'm sure, Tessa, you're happy to be in Sweden, or maybe not, with the herd mentality approach they've taken to coronavirus. But things are really difficult in the land of my birth, which in so many ways is really struggling to exist, if it even does anymore. So there's a couple of thoughts I'd like to share. Many of you I already know are fans of Nikola Tesla, as am I. I think he's one of my muses in many ways. The scientists of today think deeply. And remember how long ago he was saying this. Scientists of today think deeply instead of clearly. One must be sane to think clearly, but one can think deeply and be quite insane. And then the last two quotes are from me. If anything is sacred, everything is sacred. And the last one, people ask me all the time, Lynnclaire, do you think you're the only one who's ever seen the pattern? I say, no, I absolutely do not. Perhaps it's the first time in a long, long time it's been brought back and all the pieces whole. Why do you think you're the one to have seen the pattern, to remember and to bring it back? And I said, because I was too stupid to say no to the universe when given the opportunity. So no one is chosen. We either choose, we either say yes or we say no. I'd like to call your attention. Some of you may know of Lou Kaufman. Lou is the mathematician that I've worked with for 33 years. That's him in the bottom right-hand corner. We have an octave to our scientific method of investigation. I made one promise to my team 25 years ago, and that promise was the first time I'm wrong, the first time what I report or describe or draw, the first time it's incorrect, I quit. I will just quit. And it's not about the need to be right. It's about the need to be accurate. And we're still working. So it starts with clearly communicating your idea, which is why I've spent so much time, in the last couple of days putting this together, hopefully to drive and strive for clarity. Question the idea you want to understand, and most importantly, question the reason why you want it answered. Work with competent, open-hearted, open-minded individuals who are ready for anything. The last thing I want is a bunch of like-minded people, or because they all think alike.
That's John Stuart Reed, isn't it?
That is John Stuart Reed. Do you know John?
Yeah, we're pulling him in on one of these episodes here. Yeah, trying to figure out exactly how to format it.
Good. Oh,
yeah.
John's great. We've worked extensively with him,
and
awesome. John was an answer to my prayers. So write down all the hypotheses and predicted outcomes. And in 1990, most of you, I don't know if you know that I had a near-death experience, actually 2 of them, in 1987. And I came back saying I saw the strand of the tapestry weaving all creation. I said it's space, it's time, it's light, it's what matter is, it's how matter moves, and it's love. And therefore, love and this pattern is the only thing that matters. And I literally walked away from my life as I knew it. Long story. One of the things that I talked about is that when you can, I hear this matrix all the time. It's an inaudible frequency. And I said to my team, I said, when you can see what I can hear, when we have the frequency, the mathematics, we'll put that frequency into 10 drops of water and you will see the matrix. And they all thought I was crazy because they said, if you can hear it and we can't see it, that means it's inaudible. And inaudible frequencies are such low vibration, and low vibrations have no pattern, low pattern, minimal pattern, and what you're describing is so complex. So you'll see why I was so thrilled when John Stuart Reed came into my life. So model and experiment to test every hypothesis, observe and question every assumption with both care and compassion, evaluate the results based on what they are and agree on the conclusion, communicate with compassion and transparency as you work together to figure out the next question, and invite others to participate. So in the top picture, Lou Kaufman is sitting beside John. I'm off to the right. Dr. Peter McNair, medical doctor, DNA lab from Copenhagen, is kind of behind John. His wife, Yuda, who's a biochemist and informatics specialist, is in the white sweater. Rick Motto, one of our board members who's in Delaware, is standing in the background, and Lou Kaufman's wife is in the red on the left. So, oh my goodness, I might have to, let me pop out of this for just a minute, okay, and slide that whole bunch of notes. This PowerPoint is so humongous.
I've been using Google Google, what is it? Not Google Sheets, but the Google Slide program, and it works wonders. Oh my gosh.
Does it work with Does it work if you have film files in there that are like 300 megabits?
Yep. Oh my gosh. Yeah. You can throw anything in it. Really. It's almost.
Is that robust? Okay. I'll check it out. I promise.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good one.
So let's go back to this. Okay. So this is the cover of our most recent book. I've got 4 books sitting in front of me. I can show you them if we go back to screen mode, but it's not important. My first book came out in 1997. The only reason I wrote it is because the Dalai Lama told me to. I would never have done it again. I'm far less obedient now than I was when I left the monastery. So what we're going to be talking about is antiquity to modernity, etheric nothingness to everything, the knowledge to hear, see, and harness the power of creation, understanding local possibilities, and evaluating the impact a possibility has on your physical, your emotional, your mental, your instinctual, your temporal and spiritual realities in order to understand global potential. Have most of you, it's a statement, you've long known your why. I assume, which is a dangerous thing to do. Do most of you have a why? You know why you're here? A sense of that? Not a rhetorical question. I'd really like to know. Do you know what your why is?
Oh, I definitely know quite a few whys. I don't think there's just one.
No, I agree. There's not just one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I want to present to you all today is the long missing how, because that's what's been missing. Again, my apologies for the out of alignment. We're just going to let it be unless we can't read it. So what I'm talking about is your quest, the questions, your answers, the big question, why, where, when, what, and who. Okay, it's not there, but I know what it says, so I can clearly tell you. Chances are that what I want or what works for me won't work for you. How many times does someone say, oh, this worked for me, try it, I'll bet it will work for you, and it doesn't. We just get frustrated. However, what works for me and how what works for me is absolutely identical to how what works for you works. It's like if we're going out to dinner and I want fish and a glass of white wine and a green salad and fresh fruit for dessert, but you want a beer and a burger and chocolate cake for dessert. They're different. But the process of digestion, you were talking about political digestion or socioeconomic digestion. How we digest it goes through. We take food in, it goes through, and it comes out. So if I'm drinking white wine and you're drinking a beer, we're both going to wind up lining up for the loo. So that's the kind of how, systemic how, that I'm talking about. Okay, I have 2 questions, 2 statements. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. How many believe that's true?
I don't think that much of what Einstein said is true, but I do there's a lot of value to what he says. But honestly, that's his definition of insanity.
Yeah, it was Benjamin Franklin's definition as well. So Einstein hijacked it. That's why I don't give it attribution.
Interesting.
Is there anyone else who can hear me who believes that doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, is insanity?
I actually always changed my jobs every 5 years in my life. I had a lot of jobs. I'm 58 now, you can count. And I always tumble everything I do. Of course, I don't like routine of any kind. I always want to do things completely new,
Okay.
and fresh, and learn new skills.
Right.
If I may add,
Yes.
Okay.
if I may add, I think that
Tell me
even if
who's
you've done
speaking.
something multiple times, doesn't mean the outcome will always be the same. Sometimes it's worth trying again.
Okay.
Well, when I sit down, check this out. When I sit down in front of a blank sheet of paper, I do the same exact thing. I sit down with a pen in hand in front of a blank sheet of paper, and it's always different what comes out.
Yeah.
So that's the same thing over and over.
Yeah, I think the statement is not very precise. Of course, you have to go on doing the same thing over and over for as long as you get a certain grade of perfection in it. Of course, you need practicing to do things right. So if you really do something the first time and it doesn't work out, of course, you still don't have the skills to do it well. You have to try over. You have to try until you get skilled on the theme, on what you're doing. Then you can actually bury it. You can forget it. You know how it's going, and then you have to go on with your life and do another thing. Is what I think. Yeah.
How many of you believe your thoughts create your reality?
I think we co-create our reality.
Okay.
I think thought and action always have to come together. You can't just think about something. This will never work.
Mm-hmm.
You have to move. You have to move in the correct direction at least. Then maybe you get what you want. But also what we want mostly is not in harmony of what we really want. The word want is always misused a lot of time, I guess.
Okay, let me
what
say
we're conscious of. Oh, go ahead.
No,
I was going to
please.
say what we're conscious of and what we think about sometimes are two different things. You know, and that has to do with thought and reaction or action. You know, we're conscious of certain things, like I'm now conscious of being a being of light, a child of light. But am I thinking about doing the process all the time? Sometimes I'm switching in and out of gears, but am I conscious of how to live according to light? Yes, I am. Am I facilitating that with my thoughts all the time? No, I'm not. But I just wanted to iterate that, you know, the conscious comes before the thought, and then the wave comes afterwards. So yeah, if you're focused on whatever you're thinking about, you have an action that stems from it. If you're caught in the thought, your consciousness will never procure an action. That's just my statement. This is B-Love. Brian Lee, by the way.
Thank you so much. Let me ask you all before you speak or respond to a statement, would you please say your name so I at least have a clue who's talking? So I appreciate you telling me that, Brian. Well, for starters, what I'm going to show you today, can someone turn off their mic?
Yeah, we got a hot mic. Hey, I think it's, yep, there we go, thanks.
Okay, great. You know, I think Einstein and Ben Franklin, when they were talking about doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, we're talking about kind of the head-banging moments when, you know, how that worked so perfectly for me last time. Why doesn't it work this time? And that our thoughts create our reality. I would like to say that I think both are existentialized. They're bubbles that my experience has popped for me because I have learned how to use this knowledge as a tool to evaluate a decision. And so the experience is different every single time. How I'm evaluating it is identical. I'm using the same questions. And so it's what makes me feel inwardly sane, what I call insane, and sane in the world, logical, coherent in the external world. But as far as my thoughts created my reality, I'll tell you right now, if my thoughts created my reality, there'd be two places that I would be. One of two places. I'd be dead because I have had so many, when you've died 3 times and come back, it's not always easy, especially when everything in your experience, you know what the light really is all about and what the new beginning is that awaits us at the ending of this. So if my thoughts created my reality, I'd be dead. And if my thoughts created my reality, there'd be more than one person. I'd be in prison because more than once I've thought I could kill that SOB. So anyway, I just want us to challenge our thinking on making assumptions on all these statements. And I'm very aware that I'm talking to a group of people who are in many ways cats. And given that I just got a new cat, I know that herding a cat is absolutely impossible. So let me just keep going. The Mereon Matrix has only 12 first principles, very simple. We have a new book coming out. It's called Answering von Bertalanffy, who was a scientist who was on a quest for a dynamic general systems theory. And what we're taking is a polyhedral approach to systems, which are always nonlinear, and one that is logical, simple, radical, evolutionary, and most importantly, universal. Uniqueness. So let's talk about 4 specific uniquenesses about my work that I'd like to talk about. And one is combining geometry with process thinking in a way that's applicable to both living and lifelike systems. And some of you might be saying, what's a lifelike system? We're a lifelike system. We're a group of people who are having a dialogue, albeit a monologue most of the time. It's a new understanding that all systems are learning environments, and that means learning, unlearning, and relearning are essential to survival. And what this matrix gives us is direct access to understand the relationships among them. And we have so far successfully applied this to pre-evolution, biological evolution. I should also mention I've worked and still working with Nick Wolf from NASA on astrobiology, human molecular genetics, personal development, relationship building, human resource and organizational development, teacher development, and a classroom management method that puts kids in charge of the social dimension of their learning environment. And that last sentence is my passion, because that's our future, no matter what. So, as we all know, the quest for dynamic unity has been going on for a long time. And Buckminster Fuller, I'm sure many of you are aware, and many of you are aware of Kepler. They all had very similar models, shell models, looking at the atomic structure, and on and on, but not getting there, not being able to understand how they all worked in harmony together. Here's some new statements. The Mereon matrix unites all known geometric forms into 3 components of a singular system. Mereon identifies the sequential emergence of those forms, and there's only 7. Mereon's context and the core, if you think of a cell model, if you think of the membrane and the nucleus, they generate and are connected, they co-generate, it should actually say, and are connected by 11 knots. We'll learn more about that. You saw it on the cover of the book. The curvilinear topology is connected to the polyhedral vertices that generate vortices. I know a lot of you are interested in vortex physics, all things electrical. We could go on and on. We've identified the cooperative relationship of those forms to all known physical forces, and we have an understanding of their function in relationship to a natural growth process. Any of you recognize these? So these are the Platonic and the Kepler solids. And in case any of you are saying, well, what about the Catalan or the Archimedeal solids? They are all subsets of these 7. So at the top, you see how many, symbol, the name, the vertices, the edges, the faces, and all the science. And then on the column on the far left, going down, you see how they all fit into the Mereon matrix. So we're looking at the symbol, the tetrahedron, how many fit inside, how many, does this Mereon matrix, how many does it define? We're talking about an inclusive model. So we find that 10 tetrahedron fit into the model, and there on the far right, you see 10 tetrahedron. People ask me often about the star tetrahedron, and I say, well, that wouldn't quite be enough energy to light a match in terms of what I'm thinking about. So that's fire, the octahedron. By the way, these are not in order, in any necessary order. When Bob Gray and I did thousands of pages of work over the last 20 plus years, we intentionally just kind of just threw it up there as a mishmash. So there's 5 octahedron fit, there's 5 cubes, there's 5 rhombic dodecahedrons, there's 6 icosahedron, 2 types. One is saltwater, one is freshwater. One is think of it as an ocean, and one is a bubble. I see a mistake there. It says there's 5 dodecahedrons. There's not, there's only 1. And there's only 1 rhombic triacontahedron. So if you add that all up, if you change that 5 to a 4, you'll notice that there are 33 polyhedra defined by the Mereon matrix, and we're only looking at the context. If you change the 10, if you look at the core, everything is increased by 1 except for tetrahedron, which is increased by 2. So Chris, this is for you. The tetrahedron has a 3/4-fold symmetry, and we have looked, and it aligns with the rhombic dodecahedron in the Mereon matrix. It fits. So it is there. So we understand how it fits. And if you actually look closely at the rhombic dodecahedron, you can see the relationship. It becomes fairly obvious. So I'm going to take you to an external page right now, because I want you to see what all that geometry looks like in motion. So does anyone see it breathing? This is modeling. Yeah. This is modeling that has had to be done. And we're only looking at one aspect of it, and you can see that it's breathing. And at the top one, we're looking at just the octahedron. As you can tell, and maybe some of you who are familiar with the jitterbug, the Mereon matrix, the context, the boundary, the brain, is actually, the geometry defines 5 interacting jitterbugs. So the middle, the next one, you see it with a little bit of spin. You see it compressing, and this is my favorite, because this is where you're seeing it for what it really is. You see the complexity, the breathing, the inhale and the exhale.
Now those moving in space create a tail and a head that's in front of it. And that's what a Birkeland current is. Birkeland currents and Bessel functions are expressions of these polyhedral vortices.
Absolutely.
And that's what separates matter into sheaths. And this is beautiful.
That Chris? Is that Chris?
No, this is Buddy.
Hi. Oh, that's Buddy. Okay, great.
Yeah,
okay.
Sorry.
Buddy, just wait. Let me get back to our, no, I don't want to see the joy of whining. Let me get back to my.
Take your time. Don't feel rushed, because we have plenty of time here on the show.
Do we? Okay,
yeah.
Great. Just want to, okay. So that I wanted you to see that. How many of you are familiar with the golden ratio?
I think we all got that nailed.
Yeah,
everyone. We love it.
Good. Okay. Well, the Mereon matrix is pure gold. All 62 vertices on this image you see, ITO, all 62 vertices are golden ratio. All the polyhedra that the system defines, inside, out, and the knot, are pure gold. What are not golden ratio structures?
Oh, we lost a mute. We lost you, Lynnclaire. Okay,
yes.
You're back now.
Oh, did you lose me? Tell me where you lost me.
Just about maybe 15 seconds back.
Okay. What I was saying is every aspect, all vertices are golden ratio, and all the clusters of different geometries that fit that are defined within the Mereon matrix at every level, even those that are not gold, that are not based on the golden ratio. What I was saying, such as the rhombic dodecahedron, which is the square root of 2, because they're in clusters, then how they fit, they all turn gold. To me, that's alchemy, taking something that's not golden ratio and turning it golden ratio. The breath is the most important thing. The breathing is what identifies a healthy, vibrant system. Here we're looking at the lower dimensional trefoil knot. I don't have time to show you how that transforms into the Mereon matrix, which has the 6 points. But at the top, you see the 3 come around clockwise to utilize, and you see the 4-fold symmetry highlighted in the middle. So you have input to throughput, and then the output is 5-fold. If you notice the geospherical, the tighter it gets into the sphere around the 5 points, the more spherical it gets. I remember when I saw that so clearly, and I said, Bob, that's exactly, the 5-fold is what you're going to see in the water when we put the sound into water, and this blue light is going to appear, and the blue light is, of course, plasma, and it's going to generate what you see there. And I remember Luke Hoffman sitting in a Greek restaurant with me and just rolling his eyes and going, right, okay. And by the way, the red geometry in the center is the 144. It's a dynamic structure as well. It breathes, it is defined, best defined by 6 interpenetrating jitterbugs. It expands from 144 faces to 300 faces. It's it's complex. Again, criticism is the backbone of scientific method. Since 1987, every memory has been written down. It's been taken as predictive. The unknown geospheres were modeled. I have to tell you that in 1994, a group of guys at the University of Washington in one of the supercomputers attempted to describe the knot that I had drawn. And they had to cold boot, turn off a supercomputer after 137 hours because they thought it was going to crash. They couldn't do it. They could not figure out how to do it. And they actually did the cover of my first book for me. But they said, we can't do it. We can't figure it out. So in 1998, when I met Bob Gray, who with Luke is really Mereon's greatest hero, that's when 286 or 256, maybe, I guess it's a 256 PCs came out. And there was finally enough power in a PC that Bob could write the software and animate the models. And he said, after our first symposium, we had 50 top scientists from all around the world flew to San Francisco to take part in this dialogue about this knot in geometry. And Bob Gray said, it can't work. He had me draw 3 times. He had me draw the one triangle that defines the matrix, the external structure. 5 times, and he said, this won't generate anything. And I said, if you take a stack of 120 of them and you put them together, it can only do one thing. It will form a geosphere that will breathe. And he said, it'll take me 2 weeks to prove this doesn't work. And I said, oh, by the way, when it breathes out, when it opens, there's going to be 180 of those same triangles. So it's going to go from 120 to 180. He said, 2 weeks, I'll prove it doesn't work. He's still on the job.
How many of these geospheres, these breathing geospheres exist, do you think?
It's infinite. Okay. We're talking, we lovingly call this the mother bubble.
It reminds me of the pinch of a Z pinch in charge, and how charge compresses like in sonoluminescence.
Oh, this is sonoluminescence.
For sure, yeah, I can see it.
Okay, wait, you're gonna see more. So here's John Stewart Reed's laboratory. So I want to walk you through, show you some setups. I want to show you what we're up to. So this is the device that he created while we were working together. He had an older machine that he was using, which we first worked with. It worked, but he realized when he was working with us that maybe this was going to be more scientific. So he built this beautiful, spectacularly glorious machine. We're shooting, as you can see, the camera looking straight down into the dish. We have a camera looking at 45 degrees, and we have on the right-hand side, you see another camera shooting straight into the center of the dish from 90 degrees. So we're shooting from 3 angles. Most of the videos that I'm going to show you, we met in 2012. Most of the videos that I'm going to show you were shot in regular light, and then we had the idea to turn out the lights. So here is the first video that we did. It's the priming, what we call the priming frequency. It's the inaudible frequency that is derived from the mathematics. I should also mention that coherence in the Mereon matrix has a number, and the number is 33. And we find it in every point, line, plane, the planar level. If we put a pole down the axes, the 3 axes, the 3, 4, 5, the system is divided into 33 layers. The mathematics is a 33-digit number, and numbers 2, 3, and 4 are the priming frequency. And we're going to play it for you now. It's an inaudible frequency. And when we started, everyone said there will be nothing there. And I kept saying, John, here it comes. And I said, John, I can't hear it yet. You have to turn up the amplitude. He said, well, the amplitude's not going to matter. I said, yes, it is. Turn it up. And I said, keep turning it up, turn it up. And as the amplitude is increased, it begins to get more complex. But I kept saying, you have to turn it to its maximum. He said, it will explode. I said, so what? It's 10 drops of water. When it got to here, I said, you have to turn it to max. Please turn it to maximum amplitude. I need to hear it sing. You'll know the minute it starts to sing.
This is Brian. These are the patterns that I see in my eyes when I squint my eyes really tight. These patterns are going off all the time.
Brian, you're not going to have to squeeze your eyes very tight anymore because you've been matte. So now I want to show you that same video, that exact same video from another perspective. So here's the top left is looking straight in from 90 degrees. And there we see the color doesn't show up real well in that picture. It's blue, it's plasma. NASA recognized it instantly as plasma. And in the bottom 2 pictures, you see chaos, right? Beautiful chaos, but chaos. The video is not very clear because of the motion, of course, and I can't, unfortunately, slow this down. So here's another one. Let's watch this one. Whoops, I kept stopping. Let's see if I can back that up. Sorry. If you look closely, you'll see the blue sphere appear. Do you see it? There it's expanding. I didn't mean for that to, I don't seem to be able to stop that video, so let's go on to the next slide. I'm sorry. There's one of my favorite pictures. On the left, you see the blue sphere first appearing. In the bottom, you see it from 90 degrees. And this is what you see also from 90 degrees from a third camera. That sound, that is sound generating light. In the darkness, no less. Look carefully, and you'll see the Mereon matrix appear in the sound of a human heart.
It seems like when it was speeding up or impassioned, it got coherence.
Absolutely. We are just getting ready to start a sound study. COVID-19 really threw a monkey wrench into our study, but at the same time, boy, has it been gasoline on the fire of our purpose and our projects. We've had an angel who has landed, someone who's it's a very trusted individual, someone who's literally grounded my feet spiritually for 25 years, and who's taking all of this into the world now in an amazing way. So what you're going to see next, most people are used to seeing an EEG or an ECG like you just saw. You've never seen it like this, but you can sonify an EEG. And those of you who are interested in what electricity looks like will like this film. I can't believe I lost that. Where's my film? Well, let me exit that for a minute and do that. Patience, grasshopper. Wow, that's okay. We're gonna watch it small like this. This is one of many EEGs that we've done. I would like to tell the sound study we're doing that we're starting next week. We've just purchased a 32 lead EEG gel cap. We've purchased our own, that's an EEG. We've purchased our own ECG device. We're going to be doing heart rate variability, all biomarkers, all ECGs, while people are listening to the Mereon meditation. It's the first sequence of sound, and what it does is it gives you peace from mind. We've done testing last summer. We did, or actually it was 2018, we did testing here in Marbella with a psychologist who used an EEG and ECG device. And everyone, all participants, while listening to these frequencies, we call it a sonic tonic, they went from alpha or beta into theta, high gamma, or epsilon. Everyone. The psychologist was stunned.
So it's like, oh my gosh, that's yes. Incredible.
Oh wow. Yes.
I could see that happening from the fact that when you put these on that sound Lynnclaire, that it immediately started to harmonize with the tinnitus in my ear, like literally so it was almost like data programming. Like my body, my tinnitus, the ringing, was trying to harmonize. There was a couple times when it just like literally started to. That's the only word I could think of. It just started the sympathetic resonance with the sound that was being played.
So can I ask exactly how the science of this? Because first I want to just say something real quick, if I could. This is like what electricity looks like moving through the Bessel function. So you've mapped it into you've turned it into you've sonified the EKG.
We've sonified the EEG.
Or EEG, sorry.
EEG, yes, we've sonified the EEG. And
who's EEG?
It's an anonymous, it's no one, it's an unknown person.
Okay.
And
I'm very curious about this because if you play a healthy mind back to a sick mind, it should fix the sick mind.
Well,
just like,
you're talking about heart math, right?
Well, if you play a healthy choral system, the sound of a healthy choral system to a dead choral system, is that heart math?
They do some of that work.
It also works with pictures that way. If you take a picture of a person in their time of health, like as a child, and they stare at it, they got studies that it actually recalibrates the DNA of the person who's sick. So you look at yourself or a resonated time, just merely through seeing it. So these light resonance are actually, like she said, they go from the point before even having audio resonance all the way past hearing audio resonance.
If I could say one more thing, it's like if you bring a young dog around an old dog, the old dog immediately starts turning into a younger dog. It's like the gray hair goes away. It's really strange. I've seen it a few times now, and they start acting like a younger dog, So that's interesting.
What we're talking about, the frequencies that we have. I've just got goosebumps. I mean, it kind of pulls my hair straight up on its end. Does anyone have an iPhone? Do any of you have iPhones?
I don't.
Okay. On Labor Day, the frequencies, the tonic, this audio track will be available to everybody. iPhone, Android users, all web-based. It's very exciting. It's coming. You are the pattern integrity defined by the snot. And you will recognize the torus, the double vortex on the right. Everybody recognizes that? It is the knot. It is the knot. All of these three pictures are equal. It is the Mereon knot is a right-handed 1.5 helix meets a left-handed 1.5 helix, chirality. And when they form, they flow in one direction. And that direction,
it's a hop vibration, right? Similar to a hop vibration. Not exactly, but it's like a twistor theory.
But you have to remember what you're looking at here is one knot.
Right, that's one knot of it.
And the system is defined by 5 knots inside. I'm going to pop out of the PowerPoint because this morning I want to show you what the core is generating. I found a picture this morning. It's right here. This is the core. This is the nucleus of the system. And when we were wanting to understand the patterning generated by that, it's a cubic lattice. This is the 144. There's 6 of them. What happens when you use the frequency? And look what it does. It generates a helix. When you put that into an active torus pattern, that's the patterning that it generates. And there's 11 twists in that helix. So if there's 6 knots in the helix, there's 66 of those in the system. It's absolutely glorious, in my opinion. So that meets the other torus. And so this is where the system the nucleus is the masculine principle in this matrix. The boundary is the feminine. At some point in this presentation, I think I'm going to get there. We're getting there.
Take your time.
I'm really getting done because I wanted us to have enough time for questions. The title of our first book was The Mereon Matrix, Unity, Perspective, Paradox. And the reason is that unity, equality, diversity, and order is essential to cultivate perspective. Perspective is elemental. That should be 2, growing a sustainable system that is birthed and rebirthed in paradox. And paradox is fundamental to nature and to the nature of our concurrent, interconnected realities. What many call supernatural is an experience outside the frame someone used to box them in. Isolating them, why? To indoctrinate them with a set of laws, rules, and beliefs about what's normal. And I don't think I have to sell the last thought to anybody that there's in this group that there's absolutely nothing natural about normal. Every form is essential to the whole. To experience wholeness, a human system requires conscience, competence, and coherence. When all 3 are present, one is free to harmonize with the field of consciousness. Luke Hoffman, our mathematician, has actually written that he believes the Mereon matrix is the blueprint to the field of consciousness. The harmony of cooperation between the human will and the divine spirit produces synchronicity, which leads to the regeneration of everything. Belonging. That's our program. Everyone matters. Everyone counts. You can apply it to literally everything. But we have to understand that we hold the key and healing is in our hands. Now, I'd like to challenge you to order these based on the polyhedra. This is a little quiz. Which comes first? So who has an idea what might be the first thing? What's first?
What's first out of all these? We're going to have to take a minute to read them here.
Okay, take a minute to read them and let's see if we can put them in order.
All right.
I'm going to exit so we can arrange them.
Is the bringer first?
Okay, who's talking?
This is Buddy. Is the bringer first?
It's Buddy. We're going to put the bringer first.
But the gatekeeper is like before the bringer. You know, the gate's at the center.
Well, the bringer, the gatekeeper would be intermediate to the bringer because the bringer is bringing the gatekeeper's keeping.
Ah, I like that.
You can't bring any. You can't bring anything at the gate. Sorry.
But none of
Faraday through the gate.
None of that can exist without space.
Okay, wait a minute. I want you to think about. I want you to think about what you know about geometry.
Yeah.
You guys are supposed to be the geometric view. I want you to think about geometry. So what comes first?
The point.
Point is not geometry. That's you're talking point and line. You're talking 1 and 2 to a square. I want you to think 3D geometry. Let's go to Plato's Academy. It's 20 miles away from where I am right now.
What's underneath Wave Tamer?
Oh, sorry about that. That's the ambassador.
Okay.
put.
Oh, is God the ambassador, or the guardian would be the center? Whatever's at the center, because the center is open and hollow, I think. So maybe space bender. I don't know.
That's it. I would put the space bender first, of course.
Yeah.
Before you draw anything, before you imagine anything, you have to bend space.
Right.
Because the space in which you operate. If you don't have the bended space, you can't do anything.
Okay, let's talk. Here's what's this is so fun. We could go on like this for hours.
Yeah.
Let me introduce you. Buddy, you are correct. Bringer is number 1. It's the tetrahedron. Now, if we have if you go back and you remember, we said 10 fill the system, so that's 5. So 2 tetrahedron generates what?
Gatekeeper.
A cube.
Yeah.
2 tetrahedron generate 1 cube.
And that's 7.
So
Yeah.
2. Okay.
And then space bender.
Remember that dynamic model?
Yeah.
At 1, when a system is bringing in energy, it receives the energy, and the first thing it does is it goes, it's like breathing, it's like the inhale, it sucks it in.
The time
And
shifter.
We
Wave.
talked about water. Water. What's water? We start with the tetrahedron, the cube.
The wave always comes first.
The icosahedron. It's the compression, it's the squeezing, so that the core can energize the system.
Yep.
This 1, 2, and 3, Nick Wolf from NASA Astrobiology will say, welcome to gravity. Welcome to energy becoming physical matter, compressing,
Yep.
gravitational, and then it has to lighten up. It has to lift up to its maximum, and the maximum in this system is the octahedron. At the bringer, remember we talked about input, throughput, output as inhale, utilize, exhale. The bringer and the gatekeeper is the inhalation, the wave tamer, and then the light lifter. So wave tamer is compression. Think of a gravitational wave, but then it's ignited from the inside by the core. It says, oh, you need more energy to complete this process. Energy is emitted by the nucleus that lifts it to its maximum. That's the light lifter, so that it can prioritize, utilize space. This is the space bender. This is where everything comes together. This is where all the juggling begins. And space is connected with what?
Time.
Time.
Rarefaction.
Time.
If you look at,
this is your rhombic dodecahedron, Chris. This time is where the chesterhedron fits in with the threefold symmetry.
Yeah, it's the heartbeat of time.
It is definitely connected to time. And then we have coherence. That is the golden ratio, the golden rhombic triacantahedron. These are known to nature, okay? And then the system breathes out. And we have what we call the ambassador. And that's another icosahedron. If we go back to the chart where we showed all the polyhedron, we had 2 types of water. Where is the Mereon matrix? Buddy, you asked earlier, how many of these geospheres are there? They're infinite, but guess what the geometry of the ambassador is? It's an icosahedron. And where are we seeing the icosahedron every single day of our lives? Every hour of our lives right now? It's the structure. It's the structure of a virus. The icosahedron, the capsid, the shell of the virus, the picture that we all, if I ask you to picture COVID-19 in your head, what you are picturing is an icosahedron. You're picturing the virus, which is why for 33 years I've said this is a virus of love. And the icosahedron hides the entire system. So it's invisible. So that energy, it's also birthing. So every time this system births, we are able to literally account for an expanding universe. So the bottom line for me is emergence is at hand, and the destiny of a caterpillar isn't.
Wouldn't it be a cyclical universe, expanding, contracting, expansion, contraction?
There's so many different ways to define cyclical. We've got a wonderful man. If any of you are familiar with Brian Josephson's work, he's Nobel laureate out of Cambridge. He's working with our team right now, and he loves this because he's all about cycles in the universe. But there's a lot of religious dogma that has then gotten cycled into things like this. But yes, absolutely. So our destiny is to fly. So Becoming Nothing is going to become a webinar series. I'm open for questions now. We can go back to any point in the PowerPoint that you like, or anywhere you'd like to talk about, for as long as you want.
All right.
Well, this is Brian. I would like to comment on the point at which we're on the turning points of the 8, the 12s, the 4, the 1, the 3. I think it's interesting that the 12 point, again, their dissonance that's gone on 12 points is what the problem of the COVID is. If you look at the circle of fifths being in 12 measures, and you look at the 11 knots of your Mereon matrix, tying, 11 that creates the 12th, just like the 7th creates the 8th. The dough to the dough is 8. So you have, your 7 knots in there, and then your 11th creates the 12th. And that these all fold over of a 4. And if you look at the patterning, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 8, 12, 1, 3, 4, 8, 12, I'm looking at the exchanges of the harmony in it. And when you mentioned this about the COVID, I understood that they really, if you look at the 12 harmonics of the circle of fifths and then think of the dissonance that you could put too. So if you put a C and an F sharp together at the same time, you create a dissonance. So if you can look at the COVID as the same thing of creating a dissonant mapping over all the harmony of our body, you end up with a virus. What say you?
Absolutely. There's, one of the things that we've been looking at, and one of the things that's coming out in our, it's in our book, in the whole, we're looking at acute chronic diseases, we're looking at viruses, protein foldings, how all of these things relate. But the fact that there are 2 types of icosahedrons in the system, one, which you'll see in this slide, here I went back to this slide. This is a cluster. Let me just pull it out there and pull it up so you can see it larger. And here.
So are you proposing that this is the fundamental of all geometries of different substances, like inside of the beginning geometries that form? Is this like an end all, or is there many other different geometries? Like, I guess I asked this question before, how many different types of these bubble geometries exist? And you said, or breathing geospheres exist, and you said an infinite amount, right? So this is just one matrix, one Mereon matrix is just one of them?
I think it all starts in the tetryon, the equilateral space. That's really the fundamental that defines the circle, that defines the sphere, right? That defines the bubble. The Trinity is fundamental to everything, the point line circle.
Mm-hmm. Because I see the matrix here, and I can see other like possibilities of different types of folding. I'm just inquisitive. Sorry, I'm just wondering what your answer is. If this is like,
when our book came out, hold on. As you can well imagine, to make a statement, everything connected through nothing. Everything is a big word in science. All forms, all nature, you know, everything is made of stardust. The only difference between you and me and a frog, the pond scum it swims in, you know, a dirty rock out on my terrace and a perfect diamond is the way we're structured, the way we're arranged. And nature has a template, a building template for how things are built, how things grow. And we went through, I mean, our editor, our publisher was Stephen Hawking's publisher. So this is serious peer review that you're going through when you publish. And this, by the way, is a 1,000-page book that basically describes the snowflake on the tip of an iceberg. But it's to be able to connect everything, all forms of matter. There isn't any, we live in a geometric universe. It's like Plato said, no one who is ignorant of geometry crosses threshold. So we do believe that we're looking at a fundamental matrix.
That's really awesome.
That's all I can say. The work defends itself, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. I'm here to take in. There's so much. It's like I told Chris the other day. I said, you know, I know a lot about a lot of things because of these amazing people I've worked with, but there's a lot of things I still don't know. And right. when I lived in the Dalai Lama's monastery for 2 years. I was invited to go there, never dreamed I'd live there. And when they invited me, but when they threw me out, literally, the Nechung medium, the oracle, the Dalai Lama's spiritual advisor said, okay, go pack your bags, it's time to go to the world. I said, what? I thought I could live there forever. And he said, no, the scientists are waiting for you. And I said, they'll throw me out. I don't have any credentials to walk through any university door. He said, no, they're waiting for you. He said, but focus on what you know. Don't worry about what other people think or what other people know. They'll come to understand in time. So you know, you mentioned a lot of things, like I think it was Brian who was talking a few minutes ago about, you know, 12 and 8 and this, that, and the other, and I'm lost. I mean, it's like, it took me a long time to figure out that an equation was nothing more than a hat rack for a mathematician. And once I figured that out, I stopped being intimidated by equations. So yeah, I think it's all electrical. I think it's energy, and I think the frequencies of the wiring diagram. And if we know these frequencies are in the human heart and in the human brain, then those frequencies will affect every single cell in your body because of what they do to harmonize the heart and the brain. It's an experience. It is what it is. So I'm living the best answer I know in the moment. And when the answers stop working, it's time to ask a new question. So yeah, everything.
The healing part of what you're talking about right now, me and Cosmic, I've even brought this up on the show. This is Brian. Even on the show before, I've just recently called them the tones before, you know, the tones before sound, you know, the pre-octave without sound. Yeah, the pre-octave sounds. And because when I do my harmonizing, I've been chasing. I have a winged shoulder blade, and I've had a lot of trauma in my life on my physicalities, and so I basically have atrophies and numbness and everything in a part of my body that I can't figure out how the body works, and I can't. Why does the body do all it does right there in that shoulder, even though I don't really have the capacity to figure out each muscle? So I stopped trying to find a muscle I couldn't feel. Like, you know, there's so much numbness and deadness back there, I can't tell the scapula to roll back, you know, to roll forward. I don't have control of those muscles. So one night I was doing these, and I was kind of combining meditations through yoga and some of my stretching. As I did this, I realized I found a harmonic balance at certain points. So just before my body went numb on the right side, because of the movement, there was a balance there, and I could feel its symmetry, its sympathetic resonance coming from the left side. So what I started doing was taking the harmonics from my left side that I was sure of, and I was bringing my right side to the point at which it would lose frequency. I would lose feeling, lose control, lose the strength. Everything would deaden out. But then I would take it right back to that point of pain, the feeling, and I would wait for it to harmonize. Now I've gotten to the point where, like, I since I've been taking this approach, instead of trying to find a muscle I didn't know exist, I took a frequency that I could feel, a tone that was real, didn't have a sound to it. It was alive. And I took that and I allowed that to mimic itself to my right, to my left side, to harmonize myself. And that's what I meant by the 12 and the 8s and all that. And at the circle of fifths, we harmonize through the notes of creation, the tones, the actual tones. That's why it's called the living word, the universe. And as I realized that, the healing has began. Now I still have a lot of pain, and it's like working out with a 3-year-old. If you hand a 3-year-old your gallon of milk, you better know he's going to struggle with it. You know what I mean? So I have parts of my body and of my anatomy right now that literally like tremble like a 3-year-old trying to lift up a thing of milk. But they work with the same resonance of your Mereon matrix. And when you did the good.
Can you see this image I put up, Ryan?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's one of the ones that goes off of my eyes when I shut them.
Yeah. Well, that's the brain. And what we see clearly is hemispheres, a right and a left. Do you see that?
Yeah.
And when you were talking, it's, to me, as I look at this image, the left side was your left side, and the right side is that wing scapula that you're struggling with. And so what you're so what you're tapping into is the left side, and you're pulling that beautiful clear side actually to double it, to overlay it, and saying you don't have to stress. You can see the little points there. When you were talking, I just kept seeing this image and saying, it's okay, it's okay, it's going to be okay. You can do that. It is a conscious intention, and intent is the word. The clarity of your intent to do that. And we actually see that in this slide as well. Do you see the clarity of this side? And there's a little weakness over here. It's like, okay, can we balance this energy? And yes, you can.
It's happening. I am living vessel of it. I literally am. And it's interesting to see that your studies, and the way your sounds, like the tinnitus that I have, all of a sudden the scribbling in my tinnitus, there's a million crickets. I chat to people like, dude, didn't you hear that? I'm like, look, you got to talk over a million crickets. And on top of that, you need to startle me back to this world first. So I'm not even here in this realm. And then you need to speak over a million crickets for me to hear you.
Brian, I cannot wait for you to experience the Mereon meditation, because, and I'm not making any claims. There's no medical claims here. This is about healing. This is not about curing. Okay? Healing is our job. It's our responsibility. But we have people who've suffered from tinnitus for decades, and it goes away. I don't know why. It doesn't happen to everybody, but it can happen.
It's like, harmonics. I've gotten them down. I've gotten them down. The quietest I've ever had it, dear, is literally 4 crickets. I had it down to 4. And here's another part that I thought was interesting in the dialectics, like you're saying, with the 11 knots making 12. You know what I mean? Is the fact that when I started meditating on the sounds, when I got them down to 4, it became to me like I had the Beatles. And you keep talking about, the little jitterbug. And that is kind of what it is, that little twitterpating going on of that jitterbug. I had it down to 4, and I could literally almost like they were, they were almost being polite to each other. Like one cricket was like, and then the other one was like, okay, it's my turn. And, look. And I got it down to 4, but then I started adding members to the band. And in that meditation, the first time I realized when I had 12 is when the harmony became clear. Does that make sense? When I got 12 members, there was harmony there. And the tinnitus literally, how would I say the word, negated itself. You know what I mean? It balanced itself out. So those frequencies were gone. You know what I mean? And that moment was, you know, harmony. I didn't have the going off in my head. There was actually a song. And that was when the intimacy of the circle of fists, the 12 notes of creation, you know what I mean? The 3 notes, we got 6, we got 9, we got 12. And it's as simple as that. It's just a living, breathing cell. And you're right. The healing is there. The curing is not there. That's man's foolery. And notice the healing starts with he. All the sounds of everything, help, heaven, heal, health, you know, they all start with the HE. And that's why it is pronounced that the beginning of creation is masculine. And they say he, but it's actually the, you know, the very beginning of the breath is the HE.
Can I share one thing with you all?
Please.
In 2004, Bob Gray and Luke Kaufman and I were invited to Harvard. And we presented to a group of 25 physicists. And our presentation was several hours long. And at the end, if you can imagine, it was rather uncomfortable. I'm just going to keep playing this because even though it's inaudible, it's present. We were presenting and there was just silence. And you know, when you've made a presentation and no one's talking, you're kind of like, what's going on here? And Dr. Kazem Madavi raised his hand and stood up. And he said, I hardly know where to begin. My first thing is to say that never in my life did I imagine that I would see my life as a child, as a son, as a brother, as a husband, as a father, as a mathematician, physicist, imam, come together, Muslim man, come together as one. Never. He said, I have just seen the unity of all that I am. He said, but I have one problem with Mereon matrix and the presentation you have made. And it is that you continue to refer to the Mereon matrix as it. And he said, I would like to have everyone present today agree that from this day forward, we will refer to the Mereon matrix as her. For this reason, we have seen the masculine principle in a divine trinity, the nucleus. We've seen the feminine context breathe and birth because of that masculine principle, that energizing from the inside out. We see the child in the knot, but we are observing, we are learning. And as we observe, we see this matrix breathe and birth. And for that reason, we must call the Mereon matrix her. So you have this trinity of principles, not gender. Without the seeding, without that extra over unity bolus of energy coming from the 144, the 120 does not have enough energy to escape that gravitational push, to lift, to stabilize, and to carry through and to birth. So that is where that HE comes from, that healing, that impetus from within. And that is the heart center, because it's at that oceanic phase of the icosahedron, that third step. It's the second internal step that healing begins. I mean, and that the opposite of gravity, people say, I say gravity, we forget that, you know, this, for every action, there's an equal and opposite. And so gravity's opposite, its equal and opposite, is going from icosahedron to octahedron, that lightening up. It's where the door closes and says, enough is enough. Now let's get on with it. Push through space and time. Be coherent, and let's make a difference in the world. And that's where the application is so easy that comes into our life, because the lives that we're living are our choices. It goes back to our ability to say yes or say no. My actions are responses. My actions don't get me in trouble ever. But I tell you what sinks my ship every time is my reaction. And so,
I have a question about that. If I could. This is Buddy.
Okay, Buddy, good.
So you did, I have a few questions, but if I could, but the one here that struck me was no one is chosen. It's only yes or no. I like this approach, and I like this saying, but I can't help but think about lightning and see that there's always a leader, always a trail. And it's certain people in history stand out. These might be yes women and yes men, but it's also very important to say no. I see what you're saying here, but this is also possibly how, I mean, efficient charge distribution and just moving like lightning and thinking about it in these geometries and things like that. I would think that there is leaders and some people are chosen, but it could be who you know, how you know who you know, as much as, what you know.
If we could look at it this way, Buddy, on what you're saying, if I might respond on that, is, well, as being chosen, you chose to tune into that frequency. That's where the choice comes first. Then did you choose to follow what you heard on that station? You know what I mean? So in that respect, we are kind of chosen in the fact that, and I'll go with this, some of our predetermined DNA precursors, our heritage, determine what proponents of the DNA were going to be dominant and recessive. So you might have, and I might have, and we all in this group might have a dominant precursor to our DNA to be in tuned to the very frequency which we're harmonizing in the heart strand right now. So,
right,
I mean,
it's a choice for us to be here. It's a choice, so it is a yes or a no.
Thank you. Yeah, but you didn't hear it. Like if you'd never heard the birds singing, you wouldn't have stepped out of the door to go hear more clearly. You know what I mean? If you did, I'm in the morning time. Just like when you told me on that one show, and it totally, I got to say, literally, I have altered my entire life because of it in this manner. When I get up in the morning now and I listen to the birds chirping or the tinnitus going off in my ear, I understand now with all heartfelt manner that it is telling me that the universe is communicating. It's just like she's bringing this up. It's always in tuning me. We hear, everyone here in this thing, there's 6+ what I'm seeing. So there's got to be 9 people on the call right now. These 9 people that we are in this small family that we're culminating are in the frequency higher in vibration than the average world. Does that mean hierarchy? No, it just means that we heard something and we took the time to exercise our mind, our being, to become the antenna to receive this. And that's why, me and you harmonize so much. And you and the thing is, you pay attention more to the clarity than the preciseness in that vortice, and that's why your artwork even shows more definitiveness than mine. See what I mean? So and again, it comes down to choice. Are we chosen? I think in a precursor that we're predetermined that we are going to be part of the group that could choose. You know what I mean?
If you think about near-death experiences and you think about solar flares and how many cosmic illuminates have come out of solar flare events, it's like the sun is connected to certain people on the earth, and it gives birth to what some people call being reborn and being changing. And one of the main themes in the Christian theology is that you're always a brand new being, always becoming new. So that always becoming new, your ears are always transforming and developing, and all your senses are. But back to the question here, no one is chosen. It's a yes or no. Or is there a leader? Or is it about being open, being open for the yes and no channel and conduit? I don't know. I mean, I think the whole universe is hollow, but our choices is what makes us.
The interesting thing that you just said for me, buddy, is I don't know. That is the most empowering thing, because that means we're asking the wrong question. So we need to look for the other question, because I don't know is in fact a no. And too many people say yes, even though they don't know. So it's, my near-death experience was life-changing. I am not the same person I was. My own mother said to me, you're not the daughter I gave birth to. You look like her, your voice sounds like her, but you don't sound like her. You don't act like, I don't understand you. It was not easy, but nothing in my life prepared me for dying. I mean, I was
Well said.
I was the
well said.
It gave me my purpose. It gave me back my life. It gave me a choice. My general physician, my GP here in Spain, is a neurologist, because they can't figure out why I can walk or talk, because my brain is not normal. They say, some of you may know that I had a stroke. Hypoxia. I was racing a hot air balloon over the Alps. It's my own, the pilot's fault, but I'm not supposed to walk or talk. I'm not supposed to be balanced. I'm not supposed to get on a stepladder above sea level without oxygen. I live at the sea, but I'm on the 8th floor. So, yeah, that's why I think understanding that there's nothing natural about normal anymore, and that how we can heal ourselves, and that if we're only using a fraction of our cognitive ability, what's possible if we can harmonize literally the electrical systems in our body, heart, and the brain.
Right.
The lymph systems are pump in harmony. And did you know that the ears are electrical?
Oh yeah, yes. All of our senses are electrical.
And well, the ears, did you know that the hairs in your ear expand and contract? They breathe. They get longer and shorter. They literally grow and shrink, grow and shrink. And so if we can harmonize everything and get everything moving in harmony, what is possible? It's like
anything. Nothing is impossible.
Check this out.
When you understand the connection of everything, anything is possible. Absolutely. And so it's just getting this knowledge out there, and going back to your original question that you were asking, buddy, about, you were talking about the world that we're all living in. One thing that I've really had to make peace with is the only thing that I have the power to change is myself. But as I change, everything else changes. And so my strongest desire is to start what I call a grassroots fire movement. And where that came from was the first time I went to Africa. I was flying at night from Frankfurt to Johannesburg. And I was looking out the window and I said, my God, Africa's on fire. What are these rivers of fire I can see below us? And what I learned is the savanna burns year round. And if you've ever seen pictures across sub-Saharan Africa, you see villages with no trees, and you think, oh, well, let's go plant trees in Africa. Well, that would just be really stupid, because they would just cut them down, because it's the underground is always burning in Africa, and they never know where it's going to erupt because the fire is burning in the root system. And so they cut trees down because it will destroy a village. They will destroy villages. So I thought, wow, what if we could start a grassroots fire movement where people begin to accept responsibility for change, the responsibility to end what I call the relationship and the leadership by becoming
I
yeah,
love the TP change. That's and that you have the word there, and TP is interchangeable. How delightful. We need some TV there with those leaderships.
But that's what's going on in the world. That is the problem. And what we're all longing for is something that's true, something that's real, and that's what I call relationship. Add that A.
Miss Lynnclaire?
Yes.
I've saddled this for about 5-10 minutes now. When you but it's appropriate that I bring it up now. When you mentioned about after I made the comment about the Mereon and everything, and you went into that in 2004 with the guy bringing up that it's female, it's feminine, it's giving birth, it's breathing, it's alive, and you said it always gives alignment to the he, to the HE. Now you look at the HEAL, and then you look at the AL alignment, the Almighty, the Allah, however you want to look at it, through any dialect of speech. Now then, as you were speaking, I had this beautiful vision because you had this thing spinning like this. Now look at the HEAL alignment. The alignment of the feminine, the holy feminine, is always, always, always. She never takes her attention off of that which sends her. And that's what give her light, the 1.618. She pays attention to the one that gives her the 618. So therefore, everything that's true, she is verifying to the consciousness that sends her the truths in the Mereon matrix. So the Mereon matrix is literally the revolving essence, the proof of life that the feminine, the essay, which was taken out in 400 AD purposely by the papacy, the papa, to give us the unsettled imbalance of feminine and masculine. But this is where it come interesting. The G in the Masonic. Now, if you look at the word heal, and then you look at the word Hegelian, the Hegelian dialectic, the Hegelian platform, the Hegelian, the Draconian, and that's what we're doing. And you look at, now, I think of everything in octave exchanges and or chords or notes. So when I say A, B, C, stuff like this, or the 12, I'm always referring to the octave exchanges of notes, the measurements of the fifths. So the G is between the E and the A. See what I mean? You're interrupting the alignment of the natural. The healing, you have the Hegelian, just by adding the G note. And if you look at the F sharp that we're in as a frequency of the Schumann resonance, with the G is interrupting our ascension to C. The Sahara Desert was actually at several times in history the Sahara Oasis. And we're about ready to have that rebirth. And interesting, that's why you sparked that when you talked about the fire under Africa. What happens when we flip gate and now all of a sudden we ignite the rivers to open up again? Maybe it'll put that fire out and we'll finally get the Sahara, the Serengeti, all these to rebirth again. What say you on that?
Wow. Let me say two things that came up while you were talking that resonate particularly. In 1994, when I was leaving the monastery, before the Dalai Lama, before they sent me out into the world, I was taken to Colorado. I think someone in the call is from Colorado, where I was met by a group of people, including someone who had just been called by all the elders down to the Four Corners the week before. And his name was Jim Joy. And this group of elders said to him, there's a white-haired woman coming across the sea, and what she brings will resonate with the key of G. And on that day, and then they gave instructions.
The key of what? Well, I missed that. The key of what?
The key of G. Okay.
Oh, I knew I needed to hear that. Thank you for repeating
Okay.
yourself, love.
Yeah,
Go ahead, please go on.
absolutely. So there was another thing that you said. It slipped away.
The
If-
Hegelian with the about the octave exchange, the E and the A. If you look at the F-Real, you know, I mean the alignment, that's where
I
the
can't-
G is in between there.
It was that and one other thing. It's not important. It'll come back to me if it is.
Okay.
But if any of you are familiar with the Kabbalah, Luke Hoffman, I was in Israel for 6 months several years ago working with the Orthodox rabbi. And the first time he asked to hear the music because he was not feeling well. And so we played the music, and he called me the next day to please come back. His wife called me. And he said, does this happen every time? And I said, what do you mean? What's this happen every time? And he took me in. He said, after you left last night, this is Rabbi Isaac Basinson, an Orthodox rabbi in Tel Aviv. He said, when you left last night, I went in to pray, do my evening prayers. And I looked up at my clock, and here's what was happening. And all of a sudden, I understood why there were 3 other men in the room, all physicists from different universities around Israel. The clock, it was an atomic clock, and it was running backwards. And it ran backwards for 6 days. On the 7th day, it started running normally again. And the rabbi had,
because of your music.
Yes, because of the frequencies. And the rabbi handed me a book and said, this is your task. And the task is the Sefer Yetzirah, if any of you are familiar with it.
Oh, yes.
And the Sefer Yetzirah, no one has ever, R.A. Kaplan was the last person to try to understand it in terms of science and number and all of this, and he failed. But he died in 1991, so his physics, his model of physics, there was a big crunch coming. And he did not know that we lived in an infinitely expanding universe. And Pierre Noyes from Stanford, who is actually our physicist and a principal investigator for almost 20 years, he died 2 years ago at the age of 92. Pierre's, he kept coming back. He said, I keep coming back to try to kill it, but I can't. And now I know it's correct, because we are living in an expanding universe. But in it, the book is attributed to Abraham, who the father of all religions, the 3 brothers, the Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. And in Judaism, it's the Shekhinah, the feminine, that the Sabbath bride that they welcome on Friday night. And he said, I believe this is the sacred feminine, the mother. And we of course talked about, the Islamic imam, physicist who agreed with him. But in the book, the Sefer Yetzirah, the most compelling thing, it's Luke Hoffman and I are spending hours every week working on this. And but he describes the feminine. He says, she runs away and she returns. She runs away and she returns. She runs away and she returns. We're doing an augmented reality of the knot, which is going to so help understand what I've just explained to you, because if I was to trace with my finger in space this knot of time, she runs away and she returns, she runs away and she returns, she runs away and she returns. I have just traced that geospherical knot called the Mereon trefoil. 2 holes.
And you just described the breathing of the universe and why you have scientists, depending on what year they're doing the facilitated research. I call them metered science. That's what I refer to any, scheduled program, anything you put on a graph, I call metered science, because that's all that's what Schumann resonance. We're not supposed to be at the 78283, and go ahead.
Oh, thank you. You reminded me, Brian. Thank you. By the way, this frequency that you're looking at right now is 7.97 hertz. That pattern that you are seeing does not happen at 7.96 or 7.98. It is not there. It is only there at 7.8. So 1/100th of a hertz, and the pattern is not there. Now we all know the Schumann cavitational resonance to be 7.83, correct?
Mm-hmm.
It perturbates between 782 and 783, yes, because why it cannot find harmony because it's an open-ended equation.
No,
But yes, go ahead.
I tell you that within one of the frequencies that we're looking at, that we're working with, that goes beyond the human listening, that what we call the meditation, the Mereon meditation, is 7.83 hertz. And we know how to make it audible.
Interesting.
7.83.
7.83. And it is part of a 33 sequence, a 33-digit sequence of frequencies.
Amen. Now, interesting you say that, because David Schumeyer did a somatics on my findings. Okay, I come down to originally I came to 8.25 needed, because when you break down and fractalize the 264 to 132 to 64 to 32 to 16, well, in that C1 16, it comes to 16.5. And I was like, why would it stretch to a 16.5 if every single carryover, you know what I mean, from 264 on down, 264 being C4, the center point, C centered, why would it? Then I started thinking of the stress factor that you wouldn't be able to get, pardon me on that, that you wouldn't be able to get to the 16 because you're pulling away from center. So then I thought, okay, 825, you know what I mean, is not going to be it, but it still had to come to 13 codecs. And I don't mean to get confusing with the numbers and everything, but
right.
Yeah, the idea being that the 783 is manufactured. How you said you were able to find 783. Okay. Now, when David Schumeyer did the 93, he did 9.36 because I went with the Tesla numbers. And he put them. Now, it didn't show up until I told him to resonate it with the 33 hertz, because the 33 hertz is the off resonant that the Earth is perturbating at. Everything, and it's funny you say that there's 33, combinations here. I found that there's 33 perturbations that I had to deal with to get my 832 to work, which turned into 936. So
well,
interesting.
Yeah, well, 33 is an important number, that's for sure. It's like I said, number of coherent. It's are we having fun yet?
It's the number of spine in the vertebrae. That's the most important one.
Exactly. Yeah. Corresponds physically. We find this pattern everywhere, and
that's why we're at 60 hertz too.
At the brain, when you're resonating, when you're listening to this frequency and you're resonating the heart and the brain, the cerebral spinal fluid is going like, oh, they're playing my song. So, be ready for anything. But all we can do is change ourselves. And when we change, the world changes. And working from inside out, what we have, I'm so excited to be able to share with you in the coming weeks what we're up to, how we're taking this to the world. Two men who've been the greatest gift to me, a man by the name of James Scroggs and another man by the name of Matt Hart, who both of them worked as executives in a little company called MTV. And they both knew that music was the key to healing, and they had been through their own journeys. And they left these big, high-powered corporate jobs to work together to look for what's next. And Matt wound up in sales and marketing, James wound up in mental health, using music to calm and many different things. And they both got instantly what we're looking at, and how anxiety and stress making us sick, and it's killing the world. And COVID-19 has been a gift for so many, because people are finally having time to stop and ask the question, You know, in light of eternity, you know, this lifetime, you know, our next breath is not a promise. It's a promissory note that we may or may not get to collect on. And is it worth it? You know, is more, bigger, and better really worth it? Can we be the positive change that we want to see in the world? What in the world is going on? So they're bringing out an app. It's called Pattern. It has 3 phases. It has a respite where you can just tune in and chill, you know, just to find solace in the moment. And then there's that repatterning me and going in and saying, you know, what's my intention? What's my focus? What are the possibilities? How do they affect my body? Because we know that what affects your body affects your heart, the emotional body, and your values. Your values are not what you're willing to die, steal, kill, or send someone else's child to war to die for. Your values are what you personally are willing to live for. And your brain, you know what your brain is? Your brain is your bullshit detector. It's your CPU. I'm a servant to a cat these days. I got a new cat a week ago, and I'd forgotten what it was to be a servant. But your brain is the servant to your heart. Your brain is there.
Yep. We are here. The more you serve, the more you're connected. This is Buddy here.
But Buddy, if you don't realize that you deserve, that you are worthy, you are incapable of serving. And so many people are struggling with the whole concept of deserving because they think it's been conflated, confused, and overcome by this false notion of abundance, being more and bigger and better, when deserving is so much richer than that. So the mental body, too many people rely on their intuition. That's just one of your innate intelligences. If you're going to be right 50% of the time, but no more than that. So it's learning to listen to your body. If your body says no, you open your mouth and you say, no, thank you. If your body says, yes, this is good for me, it doesn't damage my health. Because let's face it, if you're not healthy, you're not much good to anybody. I know people who smoke who say it grounds them, and I go, but it can kill you. Yeah, but yeah, they'll give you an excuse. I want to be there for my children. Well, keep smoking. You're not going to be there for your children for, you know, guaranteed for very long. So if your heart, if it's in agreement with your values, how you feel about it is important. But then your brain says, okay, can I connect the dots? The brain is that octahedron, literally closing, saying enough is enough. Let me connect the dots. Can I make sense of this? And if the brain agrees with the heart that there's a yes, then it gets passed to your instinct. You know, you guys, you've got these strong gut feelings. Women, we tend to run. Emotion seems to, or intuition seems to be more emotionally driven, but it's a very different natural instinct. And it's all about prioritizing and then determining, do we have time? It's like time is, I live in Spain. Time is like Hawaii. When I lived in Hawaii, it's a very different concept of time. But you have to make a temporal evaluation. Then you have to go, am I going to be coherent? Is my walk and my talk going to match? That's that rhombic trichontahedron, the 5 and the 3-fold symmetry. The in and the out, do they match? Are they coherent? And that's what Pattern Me is going to be about, helping you recognize what the patterns are and go, wow, this is a habit. I hadn't realized that I really do live in my head. And what happens if I honor and recognize my emotions? And then the third aspect that they're bringing to the world is called Pattern World. And it's all about building community around how do we literally come into unity, honoring our diversity, honoring our uniqueness. but celebrating what is for me that God essential, that God and goddess and that essence of spirit sameness. And that to me is all about time, and that's what our lifetimes are all about. So I'm finished. I will let you guys just riff, and I will.
Thank you, Lynnclaire. Thank you very much. I would love for you to continue. I have another question. Possibly there's other questions out there. And join us in. I have quite a few connections that I'd love to show you. And I'm a sculpture artist. One of the things I do is sculpt.
Wow.
And
Oh.
medium that Terrence Howard taught me, the actor. He's really brilliant with this sculpting technique, and I think I can show you similarities between our work.
I want to. I'm trying to escape. I'm trying to figure out how to escape.
Oh, here, I can just steal the screen.
Oh, good.
Yep. So what I'll do here is I'll grab the screen.
How do? So I'm not still.
Notice the imperfections in the screen right there with that you've got just before you take it off, buddy. As you were talking the whole time, Lynn, I noticed that patterning, that most of the imperfections in that circuit, I presented here before, you weren't here for it, but I was given a gift of a beautiful vision called the Hydrahedron from, it stems in it, and it has confirmations from the book of Ezekiel. And it's about 360 to the fourth power, ends up at 1796 something, whatever. It ends up at 36.0 again, which means the sphere and all these different platonics are in the sphere. And as I'm looking at your circle you kept playing the whole time you're talking, I noticed when you struck a chord when you said it's hemispherical, for one. And I noticed that most of the imperfections are in the right side, the actual materialistic side. But if you look at it, anybody here wants to go over that thing that she left on there, that play patterning, you'll actually see that it's off by not perfectly half, but by 1.618. So the smaller side that is compensating on the left for the expanded offset of imbalance to the right is actually the spherical part that looks perfect. It's making up for the imperfect perturbations on the right side. And when you said 120, the 120 didn't carry it, but the 180 was a carryover. And the whole Masonic patterning of the 5-pointed star holds at 108 and 36. So the 108 is even less able.
It's all in the geometry. It's all there. It's all there. I will tell you that you're talking the Masonic geometry. A friend of mine, professor in Seattle, was in
it's a deformative geometry, not conformative.
He was, his whole life, he wanted to be a Mason, and at his 32nd degree initiation, he was so excited at the party, and he said, "Oh, this is so exciting. This is the best day of my life. We need to bring the women in." Do you know what happened? The place went silent, and everybody turned and filed out and left him. And it was a year later, of course, he's out. That's a blackball moment when you talk about bringing women in. And he said, "Oh,
to the He-Man Woman Haters Club, how dare you?"
Yeah, exactly. And he said, "Oh my God," he said, "You've got to be so careful, Lynnclaire." And when I moved to Copenhagen, I was presenting in Copenhagen. Wow, I thought it turned off my camera and it just turned it back on by itself.
Weird.
So my computer's being very strange. So I was presenting in Gentofte, which is a suburb of Copenhagen, and there were about 200 people there. And Peter McNair and Brenda McNair were there as well. And I was about 5 minutes into it, and all of a sudden a group of 5 men came in suits. Everybody else was in very casual clothes, and you know how the energy shifts in the room. It's like, what is going on? And so at the end of the talk, there's question and answer period, and these 5 men are sitting in the back row, and they're very, very quiet. And everybody files out, and then they came forward to talk to me, and they introduced themselves. They were the leaders of Freemasonry of every country in Scandinavia. And they were there to protect me, to tell me that they were there to protect me. And one of the men said, my best friend was a man, a Danish mystic by the name of Martinus. And Martinus died in the 80s, and he told me that, my friend, you will live to see the logic of love, and you will help protect it and bring it into the world. And those men came forward and said, you have demystified the mystery so that we can make the truth real in the world. So thank you for sharing that, Brian, because that really resonates with me, as you can clearly understand why.
Oh, I'm on fire right now. The Holy Spirit, she's tingling all over me, dear. We need to communicate far more after the geometric view, too, for some reason unknown to me at the moment. But there's something to do with...
Also, feel free to join us anytime, Lynnclaire.
Yeah, please. We want you to be a staple of this. We need your feminine energy here, dude.
Yeah,
really.
you definitely help, you know, the direction of the flow of things. We are very open and integrated and interdisciplinary approach to all sciences, and mathematics.
The whole concept of trans and interdisciplinary is absolutely critical. But the most important thing that we can do at this time, and it's what I've been striving to do. This is my 33rd year. Okay.
Woo!
You can tell I have a PhD in tenacity, another one in audacity, and
persistence and perseverance.
And an A+ in clarity, babe. You are amazing.
When people say to me, why do you think you got the job? And I said, because someone in there, out there, up there, they knew, okay, bring her up, show it to her. If she ever remembers, we know she'll never shut up. So, and
wow, do we have things in common, love?
It's true. So it's been quite a journey. It's been a remarkable journey, but it is time to bring all our heavenly minded ideas down to earth for earthly good, or why the fuck bother?
Nice.
Let the waters loose.
So I have one question, another one, if I may.
You may.
So at the beginning of your presentation, you had a quote there by Ban Ki-moon.
Ki-moon, yes.
And it's solutions to one problem must be solutions for all.
Absolutely.
And that strikes me as extremely counterintuitive and illogical. But I mean, because there's usually many solutions to the same problem. So I'm trying to figure out where that's coming from.
Okay, who's willing to share a problem? Give me a problem. Throw a problem out. Any problem.
I'm balding.
It can be a personal
problem. How about this? Okay. Let's go with the balding problem first.
With the balding problem? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Balding. B-A-L-D-I-N-G, like no hair?
Yeah.
Oh, that's simple. There's some men know that there's a lot better things to do with their testosterone than grow hair.
I was literally about to say the same thing.
Sorry, go Chad.
I was literally about to say the same thing. This is Faraday. When it comes to the balding, the solution to the problem is getting over it.
Yeah, really. Do you guys have to know that in 1980 something, I had an article published that was called "Hair Today, Gone Tomorrow." Rogaine, you lose. by a woman who adores bald men. Come on. Get over it. There's in light of eternity, what matters? We can all shave our head.
Well, see,
it's the analogy of wearing the suit.
What if it's a problem for everybody else, but it's not a problem for me? Now
that's not your problem.
Well,
problem.
May I
change-
address here?
Because
Can
it's
I
a
get-
problem of perception in society right now. This is a big problem.
Yeah.
You know,
Can I address here?
They tell guys if they're balding, they should shave their head.
Okay.
That's
Back
what
up.
they say.
I'm
That's
raising my hand. I'm raising my hand because when I ask someone to give me an issue, it kind of jumped off. But let me address the problem very seriously. If someone is balding, it's a physical condition. It's not a choice. It's a condition. It's
Right.
just
It's
something that happens. It's a physical reality.
Yeah.
So if it has an emotional impact, come back and connect it to your emotional body and go, okay, why is my security tied up in my ability to have hair? Can I change you can change how you can deal with your feelings when you relate it to your values. You can change your attitude. Your brain is an attitude adjuster. That's what your brain is all about. Your natural instinct, your inner space. How can you fill that? How can you move with that in time so that your inside and your outside are coherent? Because what are you? In my near-death experience, my most transformative moment was what I called a wardrobe change. It was, I'd been to the Hofburg Palace for New Year's Eve at the Kaiser Ball. And I'd been wearing this exquisite gown and I was wearing it in my NDE. And all of a sudden, I changed from black to this sparkling white, and I described it. I'll look at all your notes later. So thank you for sharing, just so you know that I'm not ignoring them. And I looked down and it looked like I was wearing a gown constructed of spider webs sprinkled with stardust that somehow angel wings were floating it, holding it above what I thought was above my skin. And then I suddenly realized it was me. It wasn't a gown, it was me. And that's what coherence is about. Someone was talking, I think it was you, Brian, talking about what it means to be a body of light, to be luminary. I love that bulb picture. That's fantastic. So it's when there's that coherence, when you realize that light shines. It's like in the Indian tradition, the Hindu tradition of the crown chakra. Do you know what the crown chakra is in Mereon? Has nothing to do with your head. It's your hands. How do you serve? Deserving happens serving happens through your hands. It has nothing to do with light shining through or burning out the top of your head. Top of your head is an entry. It's
a reflection. Yes.
Well, this is Buddy here. This is Buddy here. I'm really glad that you clarified that, because I watch movies with my hands. I put my hands up and I watch movies and like they're antennas. And I keep asking other people if they do that, or like when my hands always go up. I'm always doing different mudras. I mean, that's just because why not? Our space and our hands are there to bring in the charge. So, and it's based off the geometries that your hands are moving in. And I've done stacking and hand dancing and different things like that, but I'm extremely into like dancing with the tube torus. The toral flux.
That's called the knot. That's called the Mereon knot, the tube torus. The polarized spherical knot. 2 holes, north and south, east and west, meet, greet, hug and kiss, say hello as they pass through one another, constantly changing. But think about it, you're sculpting, you're using your hands. They're your gift. Art is how I've kept my sanity through. I was in hard lockdown, not another soul in my home for 97 days. my 2 years in the monastery was preparation. I didn't realize what it was preparation for until this year. My hands, art, creating art has been key to my sanity. Listening to music, moving, dancing. Wow.
We started the show. We started the show pretty much right before this this whole thing went down. So we've gone through it together here. And
yeah, literally. Me and Buddy met, like literally had our first encounter of sharing spirit and ideals and stuff like that right on the very first episode of this show.
December 22nd,
yeah.
2018.
Dude, I was so honored. I'm still so honored to be sitting here and to be here and to be in the presence of such a wonderful spirit of you, Miss Lynnclaire, and Tess and everybody here, Chris, Buddy. I mean, everybody here. I must say the collective, the unified spirit that I've seen here, and then all of a sudden, Lynnclaire, you come on top, and I wanted to kind of bring this home, is that everybody here is in the format mindset that this does need to become the new conscious reality of the generations to come, or we're lost. And everybody here, from so far, I have found a benevolence from Maximilian, everybody that's been invited on, that there's a benevolence of wanting to share this unity, freely give and freely give. And so again, why you're even attracted here, Miss Lynnclaire, to the people that are here, that's why you're here. You're bound here because I'll testify to every person that I've encountered here, some even on a one-to-one basis, where we've been able to have a one-to-one interlude on our thoughts and ideals and spiritual, biases, whatever, preferences, But everybody here wants to give this out, and I think everybody here is, and this part, maybe I'm speaking from, on my own, but that we want this. I mean, I'd love to have a handbook, a CD, a USB chip, so where everybody could have it at any given time, and like your Mereon matrix.
If I could go,
make them healthier. Go ahead, I'm done, man. Thank you.
Could I say something and just say?
I'm done. Thank you.
The heart, hand, eye connection, and that's all I want to say. It's awesome.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
that's away.
You're showing this the tetrahedron, and I want to connect because Lynnclaire is familiar with Stan Tennant's work, the meru.org, the fire in the tent, and the hands roles in creation and the connections, and where I ultimately, my visions are going with connecting the phalanges in the fingers to the 12 cranial nerve pairs in terms of where time even comes from.
Yes.
But that the alphabet, right? The fire letters inside that tetrahedron through different perspectives, I think is also something that I haven't seen. And I always reach out to people in terms of Stan Tannen's work, right? Because this is all crucial, and Buckminster Fuller's, but I don't see a lot of people talking about the more esoteric side of all this stuff in terms of essence, right? Where all this stuff comes from and what roles our hands actually play, and especially in terms of the linguistics. That's where I'm having so much fun. Is the linguistics of things, because there's so much to discover through linguistics in terms of truths, through the roots, words, the spaces between and behind words that I'm just having a great time with. And I want to get back to the tetrahedron. I posted some things up above if you could look at them in terms of the oloid and the tetrahedron and the Mereon set. If you just go up a bit in the chat.
Yes, is that your screen that you're sharing up there?
That's Buddy's. Okay, here you go. Go down a little bit.
Whoops.
Buddy? Yeah, right? Yeah. So one of these, that's quaternion multipliers, right? Is what this is. But the other one is the Mereon matrix with this path around the tetrahedron.
Thank you for joining us on season 2,
which defines the octahedral space
Join us
inside
next
the
season
air.
On season 3.
So if you go,
this has been episode 24. Join us on episode 25.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. The geometric view. It's loves you. Love is watching. Thank you for doing that.
That looks like the logo for one of our products called Quantum Frequency.
So that's the oloid. That's inside your tetrahedral space. If you look at the geometry, those two rotated circles, It's the and those two tetrahedrons that are intersecting to make the star tetrahedron form two of these things, right? And this path, this is what vortex-based math is a cyclical number that cycles around this geometry.
Yeah.
And it's what's called spin.
And your hands can do it, and your hands make spells. And when you get into Doctor Strange, then you start to see these plasmoids that are created. Go ahead and light some incense and start playing with your hands and watch the smoke and connect with the universe. Spend some time alone with you in the universe, and these things. Our hands literally do these matrices.
Well,
so
they heal. That's what the Reiki, all of it. It's a healing.
Can I say something?
Please,
the Mereon geometry is literally in your hands.
Yes.
Literally.
Yes.
I don't have time to go into it now, but all the structure is there.
And the chestahedron is in the center, fundamentally, of that tetrahedral space. It's the rhombohedron too, right? But fundamentally, it's inside the tetrahedron. Those two tetrahedrons.
It's the return, Chris.
Yes.
Can I say this right now? It's the return. Your chestahedron is the return, the rarefaction. As I'm watching these things, I just have to get this out. I just saw this vision. Look at the heart right there you got on the picture. That's the back side or the right side looking into the vessel of the heart. It's the return. What is your return heart's measure? What is your return? Go ahead. I'm done. I just had to blurt that out. Thank you.
Also, cyclotron radiation.
That's the Mereon knot inside of a tetrahedron. That image that you're looking at is the Mereon triangle knot inside the tetrahedron. Don Ingberg from Harvard Molecular Geodesics has said that is the path that energy flows through the human heart.
Yes.
Return, yes.
Let me just say something also about this. Now, this is cyclotron radiation. We did an episode about cyclotron radiation. Cyclotron radiation,
the 2 and the 3,
is what comes from the sun, and it's what's responsible for sunburns. It is what's responsible for controlling people's minds using cyclotron radiation, and putting thoughts and sonics inside of people's ears. This is the technology for that. So
we're making a field equation, yes.
Now you're
making field energy, yeah.
You take this geometry and you heterodyne it and you multiply it and amplify it as it grows, and the according to the inverse square law coming from the sun, constantly, perpetually falling on us, and you get the same patterns that are. We went through cyclotron radiation. Now I can show you this heterodyning butterfly pattern, and this heterodyning butterfly pattern is your matrix, Mereon matrix, opening up in according to the inverse square logarithm. And I also wanted to show some other stuff.
I want to see.
While we wait for that, because I have a lot to relate to exactly. This is why you're drawn to the group, because the guys here brought you and invited you. They know what we're talking about, and they know people who might know similar or can correspond and speak the same languages. So thank you again, guys, for connecting us and Lynnclaire. What am I looking at here? Sorry. All right, so I'm just gonna pull up my images if they're in here.
It's like that for a woman. It's like having your lingerie drawer open.
Oh yeah, there might be there might very well be naked images in here, and I ain't scared. So I'll pop through some of these, but I'm trying to go directly to the butterfly. This is spintronics and spin spin electronics. And the butterfly wings are here definitely, indeed. Oh, I can't get closer. Oh, that's a horrible image. Man,
Oh, red.
that's bad.
Just low res, not bad, just low res.
Where are these? Anyway.
You know, while you're looking, buddy, I'd like to broach the topic of the golden mean as it relates to potentially our base reality being hacked. So maybe the golden mean is not base reality. Has anybody toyed with those ideas yet?
Who's speaking, please?
This is Chris.
Okay, Chris.
Has anybody thought? Repeat your question.
So the contrast between a golden mean spiral and a crystal spiral that's fundamentally based on the doubling octaves versus the dampening of phi.
Yeah.
Because I'm of the opinion that we're not living our birthright. We haven't been for a long time, and it's only recently that I'm coming to these perspectives that this squaring the circle, cubing the sphere is some form of a hack to what we're really supposed to be doing here. And that's kind of where my head's going these days, just in terms of the other side of,
geometry is just opening us to the experience. It's helping us understand the why. Geometry is symbolic. We see geometry because it's dead, it's static.
Right.
Why dynamic geometry is what it's all about. But dynamic geometry is giving us the lesson in how, and that's what's critical. That's why, I'm so sick of my story.
I love that picture right there. That's beautiful. That water one right there.
It is.
Look at that work. Is that your work, buddy?
No, I'm inspired to do the same things, but
it looks like your work. See what I mean? One thread, one spirit, one love, man.
Yeah.
I thought that was yours.
And I found it and nobody knew the source. So, but yeah, it's gorgeous. You can see the conics. Now you can see my work similar right here. And if I go, I should be able to just go to the next one. Okay. Oh, it's hide. Okay. I should be able to take us through these geometries here and show us the bubbles, how everything fits along these cavitating, basically your Mereon matrix would be moving through the center of one of these, like around and through, and the entire time it's cavitating a hole, an opening, and a top and a bottom. So it's exploring the throat of a torus and the geometries of how the torus, basically morphologies of the torus using polyhedras. And there's a bunch of different morphologies of the Bessel function. Because ultimately what you're showing here is cymatics and visualizing the Bessel function. The Bessel function is in different patterns inside of the Bessel function. Now, if you look at the Bessel function and 3 dimensions of what a Bessel function is, it's this. It's the skin of a drum head. It is how the universe radiates out from point sources like the sun, and it's
the tension of water. You're looking at the tension of water right there. Describes even, a water droplet imploding into, the tension of a pond.
It's half of the Vesta Pisces is what it is.
Yeah.
So when you hit the drum, it produces geometries, and intuitives can see the geometries. People who have, what is it when you can feel and synesthesia? Synesthetes can see the geometries. When you relax and you burn certain.
Hold it right there, buddy. Go back down a little bit in your scrolling where you're at. Right. Go one more. The next round of helical colors right there. See the helical colors. Second one over, upper top, right there. That one. Any one of those 3. Now, what the Mereon matrix is actually doing and what it's showing is and Cosmos can appreciate this. You see how each one of them colors are enveloping at a different angle? That anglical determination determines which polygonal will come off of that, or polyhedronal. You know what I mean? And then we can keep attaching all those together. That's what I was trying to tell you. Let me finish this thought out. That's what I was trying to tell you with your scaling and the Dougherty set, that each one of those points where, you know, you can see the algorithm, we just go with an intersection. On each intersection, you could take your Dougherty set and start moving it and breaking it down fundamentally because of the color exchanges and each one having its own angle. That's what the Mereon matrix is actually explaining in a living manner, in a toroidal cell hemispherical manner. It's showing what's going on here at each an interval of color variances when colors implode, you know, come together and rarefy when they split apart.
Those are actually vortexes, not waves, right? Those are vortex geometry.
Vortices.
The knot is a vortex. The knot is a vortex. It's not a wave.
I think the plasmoid that you showed right there is the knot. What you're talking about, how the garden hose will do the same. If you roll up a garden hose, you're creating DNA, right? You have to spin it. It's all the same concept. And if you keep spinning it, it'll turn into a hose itself. That's the fractal nature of the helix.
Now, the Bessel function is just another explanation of a force-free field-aligned current, and cosmic currents knot up and create filaments as well, and that's called a Birkeland current. And your geometries, and I'm trying to bridge the gap for people to visualize this. And you've partially been showing the way, and you've built the path and paved the way for others to visualize and see these things. Thank you very much for your hard efforts and your work.
Amen.
Now, you see that second slide, the one that you're on right there, the Birkeland, it says the diagram shows a typical Birkeland.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that if you take that and you double it and you flip it horizontally, you get the yin yang. You actually get the figure 8 with a circle around it. Do you see that?
Yes.
Can everyone imagine that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That was the first thing I saw.
That's what spins the chestahedron in and out.
That is the as above, so below perspective of the Mereon knot. If you go to Mereon.org, there's 6 pictures of the knot, 6 perspectives of the knot. Can you do that, buddy?
Yes.
Can you just go to the Mereon.org site?
Please do.
No, Mereon.
Okay. I'll do it again.
Mer.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting that the Mereon, you know, Mary, Mother Mary, you know what I mean? That it just spelled itself out that way.
Hang on, Brian.
Add an E. Mereon.
Okay.
Mer, it doesn't, we had a linguist, Chris, this will interest you. We had a linguist who looked at the Mereon, because it's a long story how that came, but if you drop all the vowels, you have something very important, and there's actually only one vowel, and it's an E, because the others are mathematical symbols. If you, MERC, MOR is mother, MUR is mother, MIR is Russian for mother, so it's always about the C or the mother. So if you scroll down a little farther, we've seen this stuff, scroll down a little farther. Wow, where did those go? I thought there were 6 perspectives of the knot. Oh, there they were. There they were. You went past it. If you go back down, there they are. Okay. They're there. The rainbow, the 6 rainbow.
Time lag, I think. That's
okay. Okay. There are 6 perspectives of exactly the same thing. No change. This is not dynamic. We've taken static still shots. So on the far left, you see the 6 points. which looks like the Mogan David, the Star of David, the two interpenetrating tetrahedron. As a matter of fact, if you take the the right and the left sides and you bring them down together, you wind up with a tetrahedron, a single tetrahedron. But so the knot can compress down to a tetrahedron. If you rotate it 90 degrees, you get the next perspective, which looks exactly like the Bohr atom. Of course, the core, the nucleus in all of these images is very large. We've only done that so you can see that there's something there. It's minuscule, it's tiny, it's like the head of a pin. But the Niels Bohr atom, you know, which we all grew to fear as children, still fear today for nuclear energy. Most people don't know that Niels Bohr had a dream. He was working on the Heisenberg project, and he literally woke up from a dream and he said, I saw it. He said, I saw it. I saw how the atoms move. I saw the electrons moving. I saw everything moving. I saw the pattern. They're moving. And he drew three looped rings. Of course, they're spherical.
He's got a hot mic. Thank you.
Sorry. We have the three rings, but I can draw the Mereon knot and the Niels Bohr atom, and you don't know the difference until I pointed out to you that I do not pick up my pencil or my pen when I'm drawing the knot, whereas to do the Niels Bohr atom, rendition of the atom representative, you have to draw three circles. The third picture is the as above, so below. You've rotated from the left-hand picture to the top and looking down, and that's where I got excited when I saw the previous image. Okay. Because it's basically the yin yang, but you can see the relationship. I mean, I can show you, you know, Feynman drawings, Feynman diagrams everywhere in both the geometry and the topology. The fourth image, the fourth and fifth images are the ones that Don Ingber said, this is how energy moves through the human heart. And the last image, it was 1997 when these images were done. Actually, they were done in 96, but in 97, I spent 9 days on the Lakota reservation, and I spent a great deal of time in the Four Corners. And the Native Americans said, this is the Rainbow Bridge our ancestors crossed over into this world on. And they said, this has returned at this time means that the white buffalo is about to be born. And I was on the Lakota reservation when the white buffalo was born. So all of these perspectives, not dynamic, but they're static, but they're so beautiful. And it's just showing us where all these things comes together, where science and culture and spirituality and ancient wisdom, you know, this indigenous knowledge, it's ready for fusion. It's ready to fuse. It's ready to come together.
Indeed, it's all coming
culmination.
Together. There's something else that happens with this these surfaces. There is a particular what builds the outside versus the inside in relation to everything else in the universe, and these layers are boundary conditions or double layers.
Those are. It's a bubble. It's important to remember it's rainbow for a reason, because it's real, it's true, but it's not a thing. It is the outside bubble.
A flow.
It's water. The inside, the core is the fire, the light source. And when you have water and you have light, you get a rainbow. And so it's all about the flow. So we know the dynamics of the geometry, the motion. So the knot, if you look at the geometry and you look at the topology, they're identical. They're the same thing. With the knot, you're looking at the flow. When you stop it, you're able to see the structure. Why do I hear it? Why was I able to see it? It's because my body in death and dying, my body slowed down so my consciousness could accelerate sufficiently to the point that I could see the form. Mm-hmm. Time, we do not see time. That knot is why I you know, if you say, if I say the words omniscient, omnipresent, all-knowing, all-powerful, you know, everywhere, all-pervasive, 99 out of 100 people are going to say, oh, you're talking about God. And I say, no.
Plasma.
I'm talking about time.
Interesting.
To me, time.
Yes,
And
totally.
that's sad.
It's malleable.
Yeah.
Time has no beginning. It has no ending. You can only be in the present moment. There is no such thing as now, because the minute I say now, it's gone, it's past. So I have my past, I have my present, which I embrace as I step into the ever pending present, which we call the future. And
It's
so
the most valuable thing that you can spend with someone is time.
it's the most precious thing any of us have, because we're not guaranteed to have another breath. And so that's why I say, in light of eternity, which is what I'm looking at, what I am, what I'm embraced in, and that's why we say, I am the integrity of that knot. I'm not the knot. The knot flows through me. I'm just a skin sac. I'm a vessel for the energy of all that is divine, all that is good to work through me. And when I'm in integrity, when I'm in full alignment, magic happens. That's
Our
what
skin-
synchronicity is all about.
Our skin flow is the perimeter of the energy you're seeing of the Mereon matrix.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's
why you said earlier that you felt like you had a gown, and that gown is plasma.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a plasma.
That's why you feel people when they come into your pet, like when you go in. Sometimes, you know, men and women meet. That's why sometimes they either want to kiss, hug, or there's a slap involved. You know what I mean? Why when two people meet, there's a handshake, or you turn your back on someone. You never even give your name, whether you're looking in the eye or not.
Most of the time when people fight, it's because they're very similar, you know, and there's competition, and they end up being friends most of the time.
Absolutely.
So, no, the reason people fight, there's only one reason to fight. It's when the need to be right or the need to control becomes more important than the love that brought you together in the first place.
No, yeah, the need to be right over the need to be integral is correct.
It's like, remember I said, you know, the first time I was wrong, that doesn't mean bad, it means incorrect. The first time, my team knows. You were taught, someone mentioned synesthesia earlier. I hear, and then I can draw.
That's
the Mereon matrix, I had to draw for Bob Gray one triangle 9 times. It was accurate to 9 decimal points. Do you guys know what 9 decimal points is? It's accuracy, it's purity. He's, you know, if it was to, you know, you've all seen the Ivory soap commercials, those of you who are in the United States, where it says 99.9% pure. That's dirty, it's filthy dirty. I hear, that's why I'm very sensitive to sounds. And I'm,
if you saw the ear hanging on my head, you'd understand I am too.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you to all of you, because I feel heard, and that's important to me.
Yeah, I'd like to try to create an atmosphere here where people can be heard. And I'm glad that we all have the wherewithal to allow the guests to have the platform. You know, we have love here, and it's a heart mentality that I've developed, and it's heartfelt people, which is the implosive, not mind-centered people
You tell us what we're looking at. I'm sorry, but you've got to tell us what we're seeing.
This is what I wanted to show you. I'm a sculpture artist, and this is a sculpture that is electrically, it expands and contracts, and I've developed 17 different iterations that show this exact same. Speaking of virus, this is what I think is this bubble I built right before or during COVID. Now I call it bubble sculpting, and these forms that I'm creating are built out of acetate and plastic, and I cut them all out of the Dougherty set. This is the Dougherty set, and it's all the shapes come. Your Mereon matrix is this unfolding into a knot.
If you put an X across the 6-pointed star, you've got the knot. If you just put an X, okay, then you've got the knot. And we've known this. This is how the flow of connection. It's in all of my artwork. Exactly.
It shows you that it's all phase conjugate. The whole thing's phase conjugation. So that's what I call gold. I can expand my pupils on command. If you want to see, this is me expanding my pupils on command. That's taking in light, and the amount of light that you take in has to do with your heart, and you can tune in. That's your heart chakra expanding. You know that you can tune into your heart if you look into the mirror and you see your eyes expand. There's an opposite too. If you're in fear and you can make yourself be afraid, you can contract your pupils. Now this is when I started bubble sculpting. I took these shapes directly out of this, which is the Dougherty set, or the Dougherty matrix, is the Dougherty network is exactly what we're seeing as far as plasma goes inside of the universe. This is why I want to show you more about your set and show you some of the similarities here, because it's tube dynamics. Now, if you put one of those on top of another, you'd get nested tubes and you'd get cylindrical vessel functions. Now, when you bang on a drum, boom, 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 that's what you get. You get tubes of cylinders, and it's all solenoidal geometry, and it's all cylindrical, and your shapes are oscillating along these cylinders. And as you move along the cylinders with your geometries, you get 3D cymatics, which turn into 4D cymatics. And it's all golden ratio, as you see. This is the first one that I built. I forgot what I named the little thing. Anyway, so then it started from there. I built this one. Now, all of these, I can build huge bricks and sculptures all around the world. I plan on taking these to beautiful places and building these. I've already contacted the high jet propulsion water facilities to make gigantic sculptures of these. But I've developed sculptures that are dynamic, and they open and close. And there's these. I've developed so many new sculptures every week that I keep making new ones, because I know this technique inside and out. Now, when I make one, I can do a nested dodecahedron inside of it. This is the same, built off of the same thing. These are wavelets, and with printing on them. Now, I think that's a larger one. This is a larger morphology of the same structure as the one that you saw. Now, this is the hardest, most dense of all of them, and largest of all of them. How they pinch, the pinch points, where they pinch, getting into robotics and self-assembling systems. You can make 1 million of these and they can start forming things. This is the transition of the different pieces. that's when it pinches. These are different stellated dodecahedrons or lobed dodecahedrons, but it's all from the same matrix. And I keep creating new matrices to create new bubbles, and they all have their own explanations scientifically and cosmically, and that's what I'm all about, breaking it down. So I love your Mereon matrix, shining different lights inside these, putting them together. I haven't even shown off the first art show yet. When I take this and bring it to the the mathematics community, it's going to be a big deal, because all these shapes that I keep creating are important, and each one of them explain and express different dynamics to the universe and our limbs, and why our phalanges are phi, why our universal heartbeat is a whip that leads to our fingertips, why the universe is an orifice and our voice is the chorus. These manifestations of this, it's just extremely profound. I can put this in every museum, and have people sculpting in classrooms. These are my visions, and I see your vision, and maybe we can manifest this. I mean, I know Mr. Peace. He's an awesome gentleman who does school stuff and transformational motivational speaker here in the United States. But like, you know, I'm only limited to my resources. Terrence taught me this. Terrence has his own shapes that he's patented, and I don't know if you know who Terrence Howard is.
No, I don't.
Because some people do. You know, here, I'll pull up his face. You'll know. That's why I'm keep name dropping.
I don't.
He's in a bunch of movies.
He's in what?
He's in a bunch of movies.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he doesn't get the acclaim for his mind and the way, you know what I mean, what he's doing.
Of course, I know who he is.
Yeah. He's amazing. He's brilliant, and I've been working with him for like 3 years, off and on, and he's put together a whole bunch of different things, and he taught me it and wanted to see where I would go, because he was taking it in his own direction, and he was very curious to see where I would take it. And I see your morphologies inside of my bubble morphologies, and the work that I'm working on.
Buddy, we have I can dig out some pictures. We have a musician in Switzerland who said, "Oh my God, I know the source of this sound and I have to build one." And he built a huge, at least a meter round, you know, of what we call mom. And it's dynamic, because if you push on a threefold, an entry point, which the only thing that can enter the system is tetrahedral, and you should know that all spin 1/2 particles are tetrahedral in nature. They have an inside and an outside, and only what's on the inside gets in, but it moves. A fourfold symmetry on the Mereon matrix will not move. And when you push in on the 3, the 5 opens up. So I think you'd be fascinated to see what happens. You know, I'm working with people who have access to unbelievable people. I mean, I'm stunned by, I've been running under the radar. You guys have never heard of me, which to me is evidence of my success, because I refused to play the cult of personality card. When my first book came out in 1997, 2 years later, a big publisher, that's beautiful what you're showing, a big publisher offered me 7 figures. And I'm sitting in New York, and I'm at this big whoop-de-doo hotel, and I said, "What do you want from me for that kind of money?" And they said, "Oh, we want you to be the queen of the New Age movement." I was on the next flight back to San Francisco. I walked away, and I've been running under the radar ever since.
I'm not affiliated. I'm 100% non-affiliated. I've been approached many times, and I've had an in-home meeting with IBM, and I'm like, sorry guys,
No,
just can't.
it's like with who? IBM?
IBM.
Okay, I thought you said ILM.
No.
Industrial Light and Magic made the first model, the first knot for the Dalai Lama as a gift for the Dalai Lama before I left the temple. So, you know, cult of personality, we have to use our personalities, but unfortunately, we're living in a world where we see personalities destroying relationships. And, you know, if you follow someone, you know, their humanity is going to show one day and you're going to be let down. So it's, wow, I'm really excited. And I would love to put you in touch with James and Matt. I have no intention of going to the world. You know, I acknowledge that some may want to come to me. I love teaching. I love sharing. I love doing what I do. But, you know, it's time to multiply, because in order to multiply, we all know there's one thing that happens first, and that's division, dividing, not division. We have to learn to divide in order to multiply. So if you're interested in talking with James and Matt on possible interactions, I think with the people that they know, and someone like Terrence, they just did a webinar on our new product that's coming out with 9 men in London. I mean, we're talking big people in London, and they were just totally blown away. But I can see an intersection. So I'm going to pass your information on to them. So if you'll send me an email and some contact information, buddy, and if you're ready to take your work to the world, I think there might be a place to play.
It's time that we start seeing these plasmoids, because these plasmoids are angels that people are communicating with, and archangels exist. And you know, I mean, here's an example of a sculpture that's dynamic with a person here looking at it.
Show me again. Okay. One thing I want to say, I believe in arcing angles. I believe that we share space and we share time with others. I think what we call angels is a misunderstanding that religion has really mismatched and misunderstanding as a result of. And that's why all things supernatural is very important to me, to understand what's natural is. We are not alone. There are others who walk beside us. Their frequency is just slightly different, but there are opening arcing angles, archangels, archangels that let us see into time. And we just don't know how to take our bodies with us through time, but there are others who do. I can tell you 2 of my team rue the day that they said, I want to see, because they had experiences, one that sent one drank himself into a blackout, okay, because it shredded his reality. He's never been the same. But it is time. It is time to remember. It is time to connect with ourselves and with others. Shifting ourselves before we even dare to think about shifting the space that we share is very important. So cooperation means understanding and identifying what is local to all of us. I'm thrilled. I'm really excited. And you know what I have to say? I'm also getting tired. It's been a really long day for me. It's early for you guys, but it's 8 o'clock at night, and I haven't had anything to eat for hours and hours. So
yeah. Well, thank you. I really thank you for being here, and I really thank you for your time. And thank you, crew. Thank you. Good on you, crew. Good on us. I mean, we are the geometric view, that we are a body.
Maximilian, let's see, who else is there?
Yes. I wanted to tell you something about the knots.
Brian.
You've seen those 6 images of the knots. I came to exactly the same geometry on a completely different way. On spinning, I'm working with the dimensional planes at 90 degrees, so very simple geometry. And if you spin three-dimensional planes, the horizontal and the two vertical, when you spin them at the same speed in different directions, you get exactly this geometry. If you fix a point on one of the edges, you get exactly this mark. So this equals also the three-dimensional planes if you turn them. If you just spin them, all of them, you get. I'll show you. I have some images ready for. It's exactly the same.
If you take this knot and you make this out of wire, I use an 18 gauge copper wire, and then you can use a double connector to make a smooth connection. And you take it to this spherical perspective and you hang a string on what we perceive to be north on that left-hand image. And you wind it up. You just like little kids, like a rubber band. You just wind it and 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 then let it go.
Yes.
Do you know what you see? Three-dimensional geometry. As you move around it, spinning, you see three-dimensional geometry, 3D geometry. You don't see the knot. You see geometry. So that's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, it's the same thing with a different focus. It evolves from the same. So this is very interesting. I would like to stay in contact with you to show you, and we can interchange information.
Now, Julian, you're in northern Spain on the Portuguese border, correct?
Hopefully it will get reopened. Of course, I miss Portugal a lot. I'm more in Portugal normally than in Spain, and now the border is closed for 3 months.
I know. But you're not you're not that far away from me.
No, that's right. Yeah.
We're in the same country. You're about 6 hours north.
That's close to 1,000 kilometers. 600 miles.
Yeah, that's probably true. I fly to Oviedo into Asturias fairly regularly.
Good. Okay, maybe we will meet someday. I have also plans to go to the south. I lived there for a long time in Tarifa.
I think you said your daughter was born here.
Exactly.
Tessa, I see you're there. Can we hear from you? I hope this has been meaningful for you.
Sometimes she might not be. She might be on mute right now. Or
but what I call a fly on the wall.
Yeah. Well, Lynnclaire, it's been wonderful having you. And I'll share all the information here on this episode. This has been one of my favorite episodes, hands down. We're starting to get down into the nitty gritty. And
Mine too.
Here. Thank you, Lynnclaire.
Thank you for your beautiful energy. And I hope one day to possibly meet and give you a big hug.
Miss Lynnclaire, before you go, you are amazing in what you've done and what you've come against, and here the confirmations I feel that a lot of us had, with this Mereon matrix does. I'm working on an energy fabric right now, and it's woven together between 4 colors, four types of fabric at 30-60 and then a 45 cross patterning. And while I watched your Mereon matrix working those 6 that you had across there, I understood why the energy is transferred and augmented because of the white to the copper, from the blue to the red, and how it goes, augmented light. So we end up with the ignited C light, the A light, the augmented A, and give us the energy for it. Those are a couple of things I'd like to talk to you a little later on, but I do as well hope our trails can continue parallel for a while.
Absolutely.
Bless you, dear, and all your time.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Well, we'll transition, and thank you again, Lynnclaire. We'll link up and I'll share you. Can you drop your email or in the chat, and then that way I can email you?
Will do. I'll do it now.
Okay,
Okay, guys.
Thank you so much. Bless you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Ciao.
All right, guys. Woo. Well, it's been 3 hours. We do have some stuff inside the quite a bit of wonderful stuff inside the news hour. We can condense it to a half hour. You guys down to chill, continue to still hang out?
Yeah, we can get a few things out the way, indeed.
Okay. Well, all right. This is, I'm not sure if we went through this one yet, but this person is amazing. This is their name. Looks like Russian or something. Not really sure that language. But they've been ripping it up on showing the exact geometries of these cymatics, which is what we were just looking at and talking about. And that's just one matrix inside the cymatics. So there's many matrices happening and many unfoldings and repetitions of pattern. Like Lynnclaire was saying, how many breathing geospheres exist? This is one. You know, there's a lot. There's a bunch of different geospheres, and they each harmonize or integrate differently. And we can tune into them through entrainment and our thoughts and tuning into looking at trees and waves and other things. We were looking at this last episode, but oh man, it's so good looking at. It shows you the Bessel function, how it flips, reverses, like Missy Elliott says, flip it and reverse it. Or whatever, however it goes. So which apparently is flip it and reverse it in reverse. This is a beautiful, wonderful friend. I'm hoping to get a translator on our show to have Anna on, finally. She agreed a long time ago, but we just need a translator. We need a translator for like 4 different languages now. So this is the Bessel function. You can see here the breakdown. Last episode, we found Beltrami's vortex. This is Beltrami's vortex and how coherence occurs in filaments. So these are filaments and geodesics. Same how Lynnclaire was talking about polyhedral geodesics that create vortices. There you go. We got a geometer using basic tools. She kicks ass. One of my favorite people in the world. So this is a wonderful website you can go, or a YouTube view that you can see several fractal flowers unfolding with basic geodesics, or basic polyhedral forms. Another friend of mine, can't wait to meet up again, love his books, and this is his work, amazing mathematician. And, you know, not reclusive, you know, there's some reclusive mathematicians. He's out there, social mathematician, changing and charging, leading the way.
This is how I see the stairway to heaven, that onto the right, all the way to the right, the one to the right, that one right there. Instead, everybody draws a ladder, like, you know, I mean, like, you know, my ladder, when I see Jacob's ladder, is the DNA stepping of the helix. So, you know, when I see this, that's what it reminds me of. You know what I mean? You're going, there's the bigger to the littler, the in within the out. You know what I mean? That, you know, seen and unseen.
Basically like a vortex filament, like going into
very helical, very helical.
Going up into the sky. So
you would appreciate this. See that right you got up now? I actually working on a daisy chain step stool system for like a ladder. And the idea is I do a lot of solar gazing, and sometimes, you know, you can't get up it because of obstructions and stuff. So I thought of the idea of you could just like have a rope ladder to get to the top of any tree safely, you know what I mean? And not have to climb it, per se. So that helix that you just had up, you actually unwind it. It's just a 3 strapping with a bunch of steps on it. So helically, you strap yourselves about every 6 feet, you know what I mean? This winding lattice, and the steps always end up horizontal, you know what I mean? And you can bring yourself to the top of any tree depending on how many different rope ladders you want to buy. But it's basically for the design, and at the top you could have your hunting blind or a meditation, you know, chair that I've designed as well. But it's funny that when you showed this, that's what it reminded me of. And you can just walk right up in a tree.
imagine this. I figured out a way how to bend acrylic, and I was going to start an acrylic company a long time ago. Just
Wow, really?
due to, I mean, think of, I'd be banging and booming right now, you know, because
Oh
acrylic
God, yeah.
blocking everybody everywhere. So I'm sure this price skyrocketed right at the same time that I'm about to get really thick acrylic and bend it into more forms like the bubble sculpting, but on a larger scale where people, or at least kids, can get inside and meditate inside these bubbles, you know, of these new forms and these geometries that I'm creating. So this is cool. Yeah, it's just minimal surfaces, mapping the terrain of
See, that right there would be a great mobile if you took that image you got, that the one before it, that you had the spiraling acrylics.
Yeah.
And something like that there. Now, if you turn that vertically, you literally, you know, these could become mobiles in people's homes. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's kinetic sculptures. Kinetic sculptures are amazing. Kinetic sculptures. They're absolutely breathtaking. And this is dividing the Dougherty set into kinetic sculptures. Would be, hang on a second, guys. All right, I declined the call. I don't, okay, there we go. All right, videos. You know, we've all seen these on Facebook and stuff. Now,
yeah, I did kinetic sculpture. I got invited to Northern Michigan University for, you know, special gifted kids and all. And crazy thing was, I went for art, and I hung out with all the mathematicians and the physicists, you know, and they're like, "Aren't you in the art thing?" You know, and I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "What are you doing hanging out with us?" I'm like, "I don't know. You guys fit in. You know, you talk about the things I talk about." But I saw a blacksmith who made a kinetic sculpture. And from that moment on, man, I was like, you know, wow, you can, you know, put heavy metal and welding and you know, movable art together.
yes. Yes. Yeah.
You know, see, that guy's work there is phenomenal.
Yeah.
He does all the outside lawn ones too, right?
Well, check this out.
Yeah.
Those bubble sculpting, imagine turning bubble sculpting into kinetic sculptures.
That's what I do imagine all the time. I swear to goodness, I see your work moving. That's what I'm saying, the mobiles, you know.
We need to connect the bubbles to different bubbles and have them be like, they already blow in the wind. I mean, like I took Greta, the mannequin that I have, out, and she was holding one of the dodecahedrons, and the wind was blowing, and it just would not stop blowing across the snow. You know, so like a lot of Theo Johnson, or Theo, I forget his last name, he does wind kinetic sculptures that go on the beach and crawl around and stuff.
You could take your sculpturing idea. You could take your sculpturing idea. This is what I envision every time. And I keep bringing up the transversing of colors. You know, every time two colors meet, you know what I mean, there's another angle created. You know, if you add a third color, now you negate, you know what I mean, and they, you know, you got to go the triangulation of two. But imagine your kinetic sculpturing of this and have your acetates with just transparencies of different colors. So where you do the different, you know, the 7 different colors of the spectrum, you know, the Roy G. Biv, and then have it so whereas they interact and move in and out of each other, you could actually teach people the color wheel. You could actually teach people the inversions of adding, you know, pastels together or extracting, you know, opacities, you know what I mean? And show people by a moving kinetic sculpture how interactive colors are. Just like that. Could you imagine that, like a 7-piece sculpture with gears and everything? So whereas it moves in the wind, you know, you just stick it in a, you know, it's on a piece of conduit or something. It stabs in your front lawn. And now as it, you know, moves around and interchanges, you know, now the green and the yellow are working together. And then, you know, the blue and the purple, I mean, the blue and the red, you know what I'm saying? And as you move them all together, you would see it. And it would obviously make different light patterning in your grass or in a room. You know what I mean? If light was traveling through it in that way. And that's just something to think about, man, because I love your bubble sculpting, and I love the fact it's so simplified. You know, a kit like that could be added to a child in a heartbeat, and there's no TV on for a long time. You know what I mean? There's, you know what I'm saying? There's interaction with a child and the physics around them.
Well, yeah, it's incredibly, it's impossible to figure out what you're making. It's just like, what the fuck? It's like, I should do surprise kits. Like, okay, this is how you put it together when you get to the, like, what is it going to be? Like, because I have no idea. Every time I cut another one out, I have no idea what the shape's going to fucking be, dude.
You made me this last episode, and why I love this episode so much, and the way she inspired you because of her enthusiasm in your work to bring out more of your work. The most we've probably anyone here, unfortunately, I've seen at one time. Does that make sense? But fortunately, now it's recorded 4 times sake. But what I'm getting at is you already inspired me. Like, I got time. I deal with acetate all the time, and I do a lot of my work over acetates to find the patterning, you know, in work. Like if you wrote out everything you ever did on acetate, I could show you your patterning difference and where your phi imbalances are and ratios are, as opposed to mine or Cosmics or
Right.
Once
I show you how to bubble sculpt, you're going to be making sculptures that no one's ever.
That's what I'm going to be doing. I already thought about it. If I put a 3, all right, like the Mereon line, you know, the Mereon bends, you know, the Mereon strip. Now, if you look at that, the more you bend, if I took and put 3 helicals in it, you know what I mean? Now I've got a different torque on it. And if I ran that through different things, I could make horses. You know what I mean? And they could all be made out of clear plastic or, you know, tinted plastics, whatever. But when you looked at them in right perspectives, you actually, oh my God, it's a horse. You know, oh my goodness, you know, it's a small dog, or, you know, it's a snake coiled up. You know, that's the idea what I'm envisioning.
Yeah, well, because there's creatures coming out of the Dougherty set, and you can see how they hollowly cavitate their way as plasmoids and living beings out of nature. The same thing is going to happen like an MC Escher-esque type of way in bubble sculpting, and I'm going to sculpt animals coming directly out of the sun because of the spherical nature of everything cutting and cavitating the invariant cavities of life. There's only certain size vessels that life can exist inside of, and the outside carving them into the insides of what they become, starting from the very fundamental first principle geometry of the fetus and the fetile geometry. It all starts very similar.
It should start there. You should start with that doubling patterning. So for one, you can trace people with a very simple mind, and I don't mean they're stupid. I just mean the fact that they haven't cultivated to a higher degree. You know, they're simple patterning to take them from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8. You know what I mean, to 16. You know what I mean, 32. You know, 64. You know what I'm saying, 128. Blah blah blah, all the way to 264. You know, 512.
This is the inverse square geometry right here. This is it.
528. Excuse me. Sorry, I went on. I'm still doing math. I said a wrong number. My mind wasn't settled until I corrected it.
There's the flower of life.
Now this is yours, right? Go back to that one you just showed.
This is Brand Oz.
Go to that other one you just had the flower of life on. Now see that those are octave panels. See how they're growing, you know, exponentially. And each one of those are perfect measures. And you could explain a lot of things for making for a shotgun, music, everything in that. Those plates are the doughs. Every plate is a dough. You know, dough, you know, then, you know what I'm saying? Then you got the re, mi, fa, sol, la in between each dough. So, you know what I mean? The solfeggios between each one of those pronounced squares.
Indeed. So we saw this one earlier. I already know how to sketch with pen and shade really well. So I'm going to approach this with my knowledge of the Dougherty set. And
I would like you to superimpose this over your Dougherty set. Like do me, you know how you got it? It looks like coil springs on a mattress. Like if we burnt a friggin' mattress, like, dude, you know, your Dougherty set exists.
I was going to show you guys. Look.
So then take that.
The splashes, you know?
Yeah, exactly. At the intersections. And have the splashes in those intersections, you know, correlating to what, you know, that design is. because I honestly thought that was your work because it looks like my work. It looks just like how I draw water. And there's a dynamics to drawing living water. Like, you know, I once drew a walleye coming out of the thing. I actually did a trilogy for number 9, Boston, Ted Williams. I was honored, and it's in one of his museums somewhere. I did a 6-foot by 4-foot trilogy of his life. He was a Korean War pilot, a avid fisherman. He loved walleye fishing. And then he was a baseball player, obviously, and a married man. I threw that one in, and nobody noticed the ring other than a few people.
All right, I'm gonna wrap it up and we got about 5 minutes left here. I'm gonna
wrap it up.
So, if we have any questions, any comments, it looks like this next 10 years is going to be really, really tumultuous as the United Nations and the New World Order, they released their Agenda 2030. I encourage everybody to read all of it, every single sentence, read it over and over so you can see what their plan is.
And it started. You got to start at Agenda 21 though. I suggest you start at Agenda 21 first.
We are an organism, so it's our plan. We have to look at what we decided to do to ourselves. Okay. Please look at Agenda 30 on the UN site. Everything that they have to say, and we're going to do the geometry of consumption and the geometry of government on the next episode. So study the prints, study the art of war, study what you're going to study, and start to think of cephalization and how heads come to head and consume and what they consume, because everything comes to a head. Flowers come to a head. Thank you for joining us on episode 26, season 3 of The Geometric View. Love is watching, indeed. Stay tuned for the rest of the episode.
It don't matter whether we're riding or whether we're driving, as long as I'm riding with you. It don't matter whether we're riding or whether we're driving, as long as I'm riding with you. It don't matter whether we're riding or whether we're driving, as long as I'm riding with you. It don't matter whether we're riding or whether we're driving, as long as I'm riding with you. I don't wanna be the person to burden your emergencies at first hand, urgencies at second hand, supplying the pain, to find a definitive intervention for man. Not a Da Vinci Code, but a source code. Not a kiss and a toad and it turn into a prince. Not a turtle in a herd, not a fairy tale, not a narrative, not a nursery rhyme, not an aeroplane. All I wanna play with is real life intangible truth. Parallel to perfect, tearing up a curtain, tearing up my hair again. Nancy Kerrigan, fair skin, hairpins, nails hurt, tailspin, sonic speed. Honestly, all I need is the good weed and a beer. All you wanna say is that my empathy is empty, and I beat you with a curse word. Verbs are pressure where the wound bleeds. In order to swoon me, a spoon feed. Come by, I killed him with the curfew option. An option of property, the bippity boppity boo, the vapor that comes out of you. The people are robbing you of your spirit cause you have none. Pursuing the one with me, and how to do, you need me to do. And I will do all what you need. I will do all the way what you need. Pursuing the one me and me, and I will do what you need me to do. I'll do whatever you need me to do. I'll do. mirror, all lyrically I masquerade. Ask around, all I am is infinity. All that you can see, all that we are, all that we go to, all that we are rearranged into.
Geometric views. Love is watching product. Love is watching production. Thank you for doing that. Music is by the acronym Beauty, the acronym BUD, and Abyssal Dionysus is the geometer. That's me and Brighton. Thank you for being here. Catch you next Saturday. Executive producer for The Geometric View is Buddy James Dougherty. Thank you, Heather, Michael, Brighton, Tess, Chad, Brian, and everybody else involved. Thank you, Vladimir B. Ginsburg. Thank you, Jim Wenninger.
So having it, I'm both ears, having it, I'm both ears. Like together, oh yeah, playing in the sun all day long, till it comes and all along, you knew that it was gonna be the dawn, and in the dark, I never sitting out together all alone at the same time now, I never holding each other up for the flow, the flow is keeping us together. One voice, one choice, nothing more, nothing less. Here we go. Flex, flex, flex your flow. Flex, flow, flex your flow. Here we go. Flex, flex your flow. Your flow, flex your flow. Let your light shine, let your light shine. Be different in the instant.
Beings come to a head. Planets come to a head.
Moments.
Systems, everything. Did you say comets?
No, I said moments, like this moment. You know, every moment comes to a head. An argument comes to a head. You know, tension comes to a head. Everything that is energy comes to a head. You're right. It has its zenith, its plateau, its climax, its phi moment.
It has its posterior. It has its posterior, its tail spin, and it has its anterior, its head. Everything, all movement does this. So in the next episode, dude, we're gonna fucking get into it. And
that should go with the digestion too, because we didn't really get into digestion geometry, and that covers the undulation right there. You know, that first movement, the undulation of the geometry of digestion, and basically the processing of data.
Well, this is why I chose government. I chose government because it is digestion. It is
regurgitation.
You know, it is what it is. So when we study digestion, you got to think about the rap game. You got to think about the leaders and the tail spin that is on everything, including news, truth, and all of our views. So this is it's all magic techniques, and dark magic is abroad and marching in the streets. So we all have to be vigilant and see and be able to distinguish between the light magic and dark magic, white wizards, dark wizards, and see out there that our voices are what is putting the spell on the world, and our minds and our ideas are the spell. We are attached to them, and possibly we don't have ideas, they have us, and that's why we are so passionate sometimes. So
you're right, they birth us or they don't.
Elon Musk talks about viruses as ideas, and that we need to get rid of them. This is the idea police. This is the thought police. He talked about it on Joe Rogan. This is
he's so troubling with some of that stuff and how he talks about, like you said, well, you know, it could get amok. It's already amok. If you think you're going to somebody's mind and think that you're not going to cause havoc in there from what you're doing with artificial anything, you know what I mean? And the way that you add that Bill Gates CIA informative speech, I don't know if you ever seen that one or not, but he literally talks about they are harnessing the virus to attack what they call the religious gene or the religious energy.
That's completely fake. Watch it again. People are whispering in the background bullshit. It's all fake.
Yeah. What I'm getting at is the fact they're trying to subdue us. And a lot of that has to do with that agrobacterium that I found for 8,000 years ago, that they have been putting beta carotene into our system, instead of beta light, which, you know, gives you enlightenment, they're putting beta carotene in, which basically breaks down A light. And so now you're in detriment of the A light, augmented light that you're bringing in from the sun. You're trying to take in a solid when you should be bringing in a light variant. And they've been doing it for over 8,000 years.
The earth is medicine, and the sun is medicine, and we need to remember our medicine is in us, and and our appreciation and gratitude for being in nature and existing. You know, this is fundamental.
Who said that? That said, let thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food. Or was it Plato or Socrates? Might have been Socrates. One of them said that. Let thy medicine be thy food and thy food be thy medicine. I can't remember who he said it to, and that would probably give the clue who said it. But that's, you know, that's a truism.
Anybody have any last thoughts, last things they want to say? Most people already got off. We got Brighton here left.
Hey, Brighton, good to see you, buddy. Thank you for staying on, man.
Yeah, this is great.
You missed it.
Hasn't it been wonderful?
I missed the beginning, but it was really awesome to hear the Mereon Matrix and get into that. Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude.
She's amazing.
Yeah, definitely a beautiful angel that visited us today. And on that,
benevolent spirit, bro. You nailed it. A beautiful benevolent spirit. She just radiated in her voice and everything. And I'm glad that she's invited, you know, to come back, and that she will accept that. I think we're really cultivating it as a group, since we're kind of like, there's only 3 of us here now. I'd like to say this to the people that aren't here now as a thank you for our guest, as you said earlier, and the fact we are as a group to give everybody the platform. You know what I mean? Like, as we get a speaker in there, I think this was the best in the most podcast that we've had yet, that was very focused, stayed focused, and I think her energy helped bring that.
Amen. On that note, guys, I'm gonna go enjoy the day, and it's beautiful out. I have birthday parties and shit to do, so we'll talk soon. See y'all next week.
All right.
All right. Peace.